The winner of the Tour finals and the Tour, but he will aim to finish in style against Jan-Christoph Duda today. He will start off with the white pieces, Magnus Carlsen, inside shack 15. What do you expect from this match today, Jovanka?
It's going to be a lot of drama, a lot of action, and Duda will want to win. He will want to just finish the tournament on a high, because there's nothing worse than losing your final round match. And we've seen Duda struggle, so he will come up, he will try to level up and play the big boss. You know, this is what he's here for, to challenge his closest tour rival, and they're off. And we see that the game has opened with the G-pawn moving one square forward.
Yeah, one B3 we saw yesterday from Magnus, and now it's one G3. But
is as strange?
It's not quite as strange. He has transposed the position now into an English opening, and it's what we call the symmetrical English. Because look at the pawn structure, look at the pieces. It's completely symmetrical. Duda playing copycat. And this has quite a good reputation for Black. This exact position, Black is very flexible. You can push a bunch of different pawns here. Black's knight can come out. What will Duda choose? He pushes this pawn. Now, White usually here either castles or pushes the white pawn in the centre a couple of squares. This is an alternative as well. Magnus, he mentioned that word attack in his interview with Tanya, and he's going for the attack. It's only move 6, and he's pushed the h-pawn forward, trying to continue pushing, and if he does get the opportunity to push Harry the h-pawn one square further forward, Black will seriously have some issues to deal with.
And looking at the database, I can see that this was a specialty of Magnus. In 2019, he used it to draw with the white pieces against Rustam Kazimierjanov and also Wesley So. So for some reason, it's kind of fallen out of favour with Magnus, but it's back. It's also been popular with Anish Giri. He's also played it twice. Wang Hao, Michael Adams. I mean, this is a very established move.
Yeah, I think I faced it myself before in some blitz games, in some rapid games, and it is surprisingly scary. White is keeping his king in the centre, and White often keeps the king in the middle for a lot longer. Essentially, he's saying to Black, I'm going to keep pushing the h-pawn. You can not really castle safely on this king side anymore, on the left side of the board, on the right side, sorry, just because you're going to come under fire there. And Duda, as Black, you're kind of committed to a plan. Black's last pawn move, pushing the pawn to e6, has created a square for his knight, but I don't think you can play automatic moves anymore. This is very much what Duda likes to do. Actually, against me once, he pushed the h-pawn forward on move 3. He likes to kind of start attacking. He doesn't want to be on the back foot reacting. And, there's some theory here as well. I remember some games with some Indian youngsters. Sadwani won a very instructive game here a while ago. Yeah, and I can tell you that there are two very popular moves. The most popular move by far is actually to lift Black's h-pawn one square forward, getting ready to meet White's pawn advance with a block. And another alternative is actually just to develop the knight, but that isn't as popular. Another less popular one is actually to pick up the h-pawn and block the h4 pawn immediately. So either way, we're expecting Duda to at least prepare to react to White's h-pawn push. Either way, it's early days, and Magnus, he's got the music going, he's in his comfort zone, he's at on top of the world right now. He must be feeling so high, so happy with his performance.
And confident as well. These two players have played each other 36 times in rapid chess over the past 2 seasons of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. 18 wins for Magnus against Duda. You said it many times, Jovanka. Magnus has been very dominant against Duda, and I guess this is proof.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of traditionally been the soundtrack. You know, it's always been like Magnus playing fantastic chess. You know, he's almost been able to play anything against Duda and managed to win. But these last 2 matches that they've played in the Crypto Cup and the AIM Chess, it's been Duda who's actually won. So, not so easy.
Yeah, and it's often in the biggest clashes in the finals or, for example, in the World Cup semi-final. Duda triumphed there in the rapid tiebreaks. Duda ended Magnus's long unbeaten run. In the last major, Duda won. So it's often the big matches where Duda saves his best. It's normally in the prelim stage where Magnus just kind of rolls over Duda. It's often when Duda has nothing left to play for, that's when bad things happen. So it just depends on Duda's motivation. If he's really focused, if he's determined to beat Magnus yet again, then I think he's capable.
But we have seen something from Duda, which is he has a tendency to tilt. And when things go really wrong, they can go catastrophically wrong. And I do remember in the Oslo esports where Magnus just opened with this really bizarre 1F3.
Yeah.
And it wasn't serious, but it really put off Duda. And he just couldn't recover, and Magnus won in 3 games.
Psychological victory for Magnus in that match.
Yeah, that's one area that Duda needs to put serious work in. He got to the candidates, of course, he won the World Cup, but I think in order to break into the top 5, top 10 in the world consistently, Duda needs to just be a bit more stable and keep those emotions in check. And meanwhile, there have been a few moves on the board. Both sides have castled, so White has gone away from the plan of pushing the H-pawn up, but he has forced a breakthrough in the centre. And if we jump in, Jovanka, I'm curious, this position is brand new to me. Has it been played before?
Nope, is the simple answer. I mean, this bishop move, totally unusual, never been played. It's been much more common to actually capture the knight on c6 or capture a pawn in the middle of the board. But having said that, the players were already in a variation which had only been played 4 times. So it wasn't like they were in mainstream waters.
Yeah, and this last move by Magnus, it's very, very provocative. He's asking Duda, for example, to jump forward with his knight to try and attack this bishop. I'm assuming here, well, you can't let this bishop be captured, you will lose the bishop pair and your pawn structure will be damaged. So I'm assuming Magnus wants to move his bishop yet again, attacking the black queen. And finally, we do see a purpose for this odd-looking pawn move on h4. It looks like the pawn is just doing nothing there, but it does protect the bishop. White gains time against the queen, and black's centre might fall apart next move. So that's one idea that might not quite work for Duda right now. You can't really release the central tension. If you take this pawn, then after knight takes knight, suddenly black has some very weak pawns, and these will fall off over the next few moves. For example, White's bishop can already start getting greedy. And, OK, Duda deciding not to release the tension, he's just waiting. He shuffles his rook across. He's asking Magnus to take in the centre now, because after a trade of pawns, black's rook comes to life, and this is a very thematic exchange sacrifice, as we call it. For example, if White ignores the threat of rook takes bishop, then I think this is automatic for Duda. You capture a bishop. Yes, you've given up a rook in return, but White's structure is eternally damaged, and huge weaknesses, especially on the dark squares. For example, the bishop can already come to target this pawn, and this type of idea I've seen in many games. I first saw it in a game by Garry Kasparov many years ago, and I think this is what Duda is aiming for. But Magnus, he won't be so compliant. He won't allow this to happen.
Yeah, if Magnus allows this to happen, I would be very shocked.
I bet my house he's not going to let this happen. So Magnus, maybe he'll take on this square, but he definitely won't allow this second capture of the dark square bishop that holds White's position together.
Yeah. Critical moment in the game. I do like Duda's rook move, even though the bar doesn't necessarily like it. I like the fact that it's a very flexible move, and black is signalling to push those pawns, but at the same time hasn't committed to doing anything concrete just yet. And it's now up to Magnus, you know, all the choices in his hands, you know, capture the knight, capture the pawn as you indicated, or is he going to develop or something?
Yeah, for example, he could keep the tension, just shuffle his rook across, but the calculation is starting to happen. It's getting very concrete in this brand new position. Already both players on their own. It's only move 11.
We do like that. Remember, it's a match with 4 rapid games. The winner in the rapid portion takes $7,500 and 3 points. If it goes to tie breaks, then the winner gets $5,000 and the loser $2,500. And what do you think is the most likely in this one? Will Magnus just keep on being dominant like over the last few days, or could it go to tie breaks, for example?
Yeah, that's the thing, because if we just look at this tournament alone, it's pretty straightforward to say Magnus is in charge, Magnus is on a roll, Magnus is focused. But I think Jovanka and I, we've both seen so many examples throughout chess history of players achieving their goals and then taking the foot off the pedal and not being able to kind of play at their best anymore. It happened to me when I got my Grandmaster title. I still had a couple of games left in that tournament, and I couldn't get my head back in the game. And I've won a few tournaments with a round to spare, 2 rounds to spare, and it's so hard to focus. So anything could still happen. Duda is the type of player as well where, yes, he can go on really bad runs, but if you just give him one chance, then his confidence perks right up and he's a very streaky player. If he starts winning, he might not stop. So the first game or two, I think, will be essential to decide.
So it is a mental game very much for Magnus Carlsen today as well. He is thinking now on his next move, and we couldn't finish off the season without saying hello to someone who has been a regular in this studio throughout the whole season. Grandmaster Simon Williams, Ginger GM. Hi, it's so nice to see you, Simon.
Hi there. Yeah, it's good to pop in. I'm a little bit late this time on arriving, but yeah, it's really cool to see you all and say hello. I'm afraid I'm in a little bit of a dark room at the moment, but I'm here in spirit anyway. So, Fantastic. Are you all doing okay?
We are. It's been a fun week of chess, right?
Yeah, but we have missed you, Simon,
yes.
very much.
Mutual.
Yeah. Have you been following the tour finals? What have you thought of it, Simon?
Oh, is there a tournament going on? Oh, right. No. Yeah, no, I have a bit, and just Magnus has been incredible, right? Playing amazing chess, and I love their view that they've got over the bridge and everything. It looks fantastic, the whole event. So quite jealous of everyone there.
Oh, I agree. And looking back at the whole season, it's been 9 tournaments, a bunch of days. We've seen a bunch of different players, young ones, older ones, women, men. What has been a highlight for you? What will you remember from the 2022 season?
Well, I think personally, being in the studio with you lovely people and everyone behind the scene. And, I don't know if everyone watching this stream understands like just how many brilliant people there are over in Norway who make it so much fun, the broadcast. And obviously the chess, the chess has been great, right? It's been really exciting. The format's been top level, and just the players we've had, some of the games that have been played have been like riveting to watch, and also a couple of nights out to remember as well. So yes, so it's been a good all round for me, from a personal point of view and from a chess point of view.
Yeah. You made a fantastic debut in the studio, Simon, and we had so much fun with you in the studio. You've been at the Good Night reporting this season, and you've had many good comments, and we have something we want to show you. And we have to shift the camera to David for it to be possible for us.
Oh no,
to
what
show
is David doing?
I've got a very
oh no, I'm getting worried now. David, please, you don't need to strip too much. I know. Oh my words, what is happening here? Oh.
I don't know if you can see it. There we go, Simon, just for you.
I love it. Just resign.
Yes.
Your catchphrase.
I like the T-shirt. That's really cool. That's really good. Yeah, I'm glad you are wearing a T-shirt, David. I was getting a little bit worried there for a moment. So, or
only
excited maybe. I'm not sure.
So, family-friendly stuff on this show.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome T-shirt.
Yeah.
Really cool.
We're going to make sure to send you one, Simon. That has been one of many of your catchphrases this season. Just resign. But do you think it's been mostly entertaining what the players been up to?
Yeah, I think it's been brilliant. Like say, we had so many of the top players playing and fighting. What I've loved about this season is there hasn't been any really quick draws, right? There's been fighting chess from start to finish. We've had some really wacky openings. Magnus went a bit mental, didn't he, at one stage, or some of the weird stuff he was playing. So all in all, it's just been great. Yeah, really, really good fun to watch. And I hope everyone else watching has been enjoying it just as much as I have commentating with you guys in the studio.
It's really been a fun year. And talking of the T-shirt, Just Resign, we, of course, want to give a T-shirt to the viewers as well. So we're going to have a quiz of the day where the T-shirt is the prize. And, of course, we have to challenge Simon in the quiz of the day as well.
This is a tough one. We're putting you on the spot, Simon.
Oh, no, not again.
Are you ready?
This is like the normal theme, right?
This is from the 2021 season where we did this to you every day.
Yeah, we did.
Every day. It was a new surprise.
Okay. Joke you played on us, Simon. Yeah. And here it goes. So we're asking our viewers at home, and maybe you also, Simon, can have a go to caption this picture. And there we have Ramesh, and we have poor Parag fast asleep watching the basketball game.
Oh, wow. It looks a bit past his bedtime, doesn't it, really? It's like, and what's that guy doing in the background? So that's the other thing. So I don't know. I think Ramesh is just saying, like, here's the king, here's my kid. he can get some sleep occasionally because he's the boss. He's a future world champion. Let him sleep, So something along those lines. But what's the guy doing in the background? He's like getting in there as well. So yeah, so impressive little photo there.
Yeah.
So where was that? That was at somewhere in San Francisco, right?
Yep. The 4 players in San Francisco went to a basketball game, Knicks versus Warriors. And we know Magnus really enjoyed it, Anish really enjoyed it, but Prag, well, it had been a long day of chess.
I think he's like thinking, I just want to stick to the chess, right? I don't, this basketball is not for me by the looks of that. So, yeah.
All right, Simon, we are finishing off the season today following game 1 here between Magnus Carlsen and Jan-Christoph Duda. I'm not sure if you can see the board, but if you can, I do see that Harry has been pushed in this game already. What do you think of the position?
Looks pretty even at the moment, I figure. I mean, obviously, I like this H-pawn, the wing pawn being pushed very early. One of the things I love doing all the time. Black's got a worse pawn structure, but they've also got potential, those pawns in the middle. So I think it's still quite early days. And I would say, fairly equal at this moment in time, but I'm sure things will heat up quickly, right? So especially if that Harry pawn can just get pushing. Push him. Push the Harry.
Push the Harry.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Simon, it was so good to see you again. We wish you happy holidays when that time comes and hope to see you again in the 2023 season.
Cheers, everyone. You have a great day. So, okay. Great night, even.
Lucky you, Simon. Enjoy.
Will do.
Oh, so nice to see Simon Williams again. Ginger GM. He's been a regular in the studio, and we hope to see him back in the 2023 season. He said this could get interesting. Didn't really like the black pawn structure. So what is happening in this game?
Yeah, I have to completely agree with Simon. It's in the balance, but it is about to heat up. The pawn structure is very imbalanced here. We do see black with almost what we call hanging pawns in the center. Black's C and D pawns, they protect each other, yes, but they're on open files. They are targets potentially for the white rooks. And black does have an isolated pawn, the A pawn. Duda was trying to push that as far down the board as possible. It's unclear exactly what the purpose was. Magnus has blocked that pawn now, the black A pawn, and he's saying, OK, what's your plan next? And I guess that's the dilemma for Duda right now. How does he improve the black pieces? They already look pretty well placed. It's hard to imagine, other than the black queen perhaps, how to improve any of them. And he is at a loss for a plan. He simply pushes his H-pawn this time to block. And Magnus does take the opportunity to centralize.
Yeah. I have to say, I agree with you there, David. It looks very unclear for Duda. I have to admit, I'm a bit baffled by Magnus's sophisticated play. I had something much more direct in mind. I thought that Magnus was going to perhaps just explode open the centre or just put the rooks on the open line. And instead, he's put his rook on a rather mysterious line. I mean, it's just blocked. It's looking at its queen and bishop. What does Magnus have in store? Is he planning to sidestep with the queen and go for the weak A pawn?
Yeah, that could be one potential idea here for Magnus. Duda also down significantly on the clock. I think Magnus is just putting his pieces on good squares and saying, OK, it's up to you to create something. Like you said, this could be one idea. If black is too slow, white's queen sidestepping. And this is a severe weakness. I guess as well, you're right, Jovanka, this is an annoying pin, so you can't push the white e-pawn anytime soon. But if you do move your queen out the way, then there might be ideas. I just don't see what black is doing, for example. If black just makes a waiting move. One idea that I love for white in these types of positions, I'm not sure it's going to happen yet, but it might happen later, is to actually plant a bishop on this square. And it looks a bit counterintuitive, it looks anti-positional, because after a trade of bishops, white has doubled pawns. However, white has also the perfect hiding place for a king right now. The white king on this square on g2 is going to be safe forever. And then you can focus your attentions on the center. I think Magnus is just saying now, for example, you can never push pawns as black because after a trade here, the D pawn is always going to be weak. So I think he's just lining up. He's just preparing for any pawn breaks for black. You can now win this pawn on D5. So yeah, this is almost a waiting game here. But on the clocks, that is not favoring Duda right now. He's a very active player. OK, he doesn't move his queen. He moves his king instead. So Duda, very, very active player. He's going to be feeling uncomfortable. He wants to do something dynamic. He wants to attack. He wants to create threats. but he's reduced to just waiting moves. I guess the only idea behind this king move is to plant his bishop to attack the white queen. But is this really going to be that effective? It seems unlikely. White can always just move the queen out the way.
Yeah, unless your big plan is just to keep harassing the queen. And David, you called it. It's like you are channeling your inner Magnus.
Yeah. I mean, this pawn structure, Jovanka, if the bishops get traded, I don't think Duda should capture right now, but this pawn structure, it comes from the Caro-Kann defense, where black has doubled f-pawns. I've played some games in the Reti as white, where you get these pawns. In blitz games, this is just a winning position for white, essentially, because you put your king on this square, and the rest of the board you can worry about later. You just have a safe king, 4 pawns in front to protect. I also call this the bug house structure, because in a variant of chess, bug house chess, yeah, you'll never ever get checkmated with pawns like this. Meanwhile, Duda doesn't get tempted to capture. He does indeed start harassing the white queen. He hits her, and after the queen stepped forward, it looks like she's trapped, but Magnus found a nice way to counterattack. He traded off a set of pieces now, and he offers the queen trade. I'm surprised at this last couple of moves, I must admit. I thought Magnus had something more aggressive in mind, but he's hoping that after the queens come off the board, that black has a weak pawn on a4.
And it is a weak pawn. There's no way to defend that pawn, in fact.
Perhaps you could jump in with the black bishop just to defend. But yeah, it does feel as if white now would have the opportunity maybe to blow open the center of the board. Black does have the bishops, which makes me favour black. The computer loves bishops. That's why the evaluation bar has gone up in black's favour. These two pieces control a lot of squares. They control most of the squares that the white rooks want to use, actually. So perhaps things turning in Duda's favour. It does look like Magnus just rushed a bit. I was praising his play, but suddenly 2-3 moves later, the wrong exchanges perhaps, and it looks like black could be the one with the advantage. It's still not going to be easy for Duda to convert this, but he needs to perhaps even just give up this pawn and go active with his pieces.
Yeah.
There are also targets for the black rooks later on, remember. So, yeah, maybe you can start going for them now.
Yeah, I have to admit, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to point that out. Yes, the black pawn is weak, but so is white's b2 pawn. And I do like the potential of black's dark square bishop. It's so good. It can reroute itself as well to the long diagonal and soften up the white queen side. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, I must say. I thought Duda was just about to come under pressure, and Magnus, perhaps because he's won the tournament, just not really bothering to dive into a long, deep think. And, OK, slightly shaking his head there, the world number one, maybe realising that he had more promising alternatives earlier.
Maybe in a little bit of trouble here in the first game, Magnus Carlsen, but he has a lot of time on the clock. Right now it's Duda thinking. We just had Ginger GM on the show. He finished off with a little bit of a toast with his wine or beer. And if Simon got a beer for every time this season he has bet on the right move, he would constantly be very tipsy.
I think you'll find it. I mean, bet?
Yeah, maybe. Simon, what are we betting for about this pawn push?
I think the first drink tomorrow.
OK.
Yeah.
Deal.
So,
Very nice.
Yeah. Will Jan find this important pawn push? I owe you a drink, Simon.
I only drink champagne, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
OK, I'll tell you what, whatever the first choice is, I bet you that Magnus, you can choose if Magnus finds it or not to get your pint back.
Oh, no.
OK, what is the first move?
OK, the choice. Oh, wow, this is difficult. This is almost impossible.
Well,
White's best. I don't think you'll find this.
Do you want to have a bet then?
Another drink.
Another drink.
OK.
OK, good man. Boom, boom. Boom, boom.
He has won a lot of bets against you, David.
Yeah, that was a very expensive night for me in Oslo buying Simon drinks. Oh, but he's, yeah, he's just great at the prediction game, as are you, Jovanka.
Yeah. I mean, you all are.
Yeah, well, we have our moments, don't we? The best is when we even get the blunders correct. It's like, whoa. And, well, talking about the prediction game, David kind of called it. He said black would be targeting the B pawn, and that's the move that has happened. And Magnus, just realising that he needs to accelerate the play, has broken the black stronghold in the centre.
Yeah, so we've seen a trade of pawns in the centre. We might see a trade of the light squared bishops. But it's all about whether Black can take advantage now. Black's rook can capture on b2 anytime he wants. Black's bishop also has lots of targets. Look at all the white pawns. They're on dart squares. What does Black have? Dart square bishop. So to me, despite the evaluation bar being in the middle, it does feel like Black is the only one who can play for advantage. But maybe just with his last couple of moves, it's too late. Maybe just all the pieces are flying off the board. It does look like Magnus has found a way to liquidate the position and force the draw.
Oh, will we see a draw in this game one? It is Duda thinking now. We're going to go to San Francisco. It is the final day of the tour finals with 4 players and Tanya on site in San Francisco. How are you guys doing on this final day, Tanya?
We're having so much fun here, Kaya. And even though we do have a winner of the tournament, I have to say the matchups today, I just love them. Some really epic fights here. Magnus is facing his nemesis, Duda. We've got an all-Indian clash with Prague against Arjun, so a big day of chess. And to enjoy all of that, we do have a young chess fan here with us. It is Seb. He is a local talent here from the Bay Area. Seb, welcome to the show. Are you enjoying yourselves?
Yes, I'm enjoying being here very much. It's a great experience to see the players in action and meet them.
I have to ask you, when did you start playing chess?
I started playing chess when I was 5 years old, but I didn't really play. All I did was know how to move the pieces, and I actually basically started playing chess for real tournaments when I was 10 years old, and when COVID hit, and from there.
We were at the Mechanics Institute earlier, and you were there as well. You got a chance to hang out with Prague, Anish, and Wesley. How was that for you?
It was great, getting to know them and seeing them in real life, not just online. And getting to know their personality, meeting them, showing off and telling stories, I guess.
Did you have a fun chat with them?
Yeah, I showed them my board, all my autographs, and they were very intrigued by it.
So cool. And you're here today. Are you looking forward to meeting Magnus?
Yes, he's the one that I've left out of all 4. I'm very excited, especially because he is the king of chess. Good at blitz, bullet, rapid, classical.
Now, I remember back at the Institute, you mentioned that you're rooting for Wesley. You must be happy to see that he's won all his 4 matches.
Yeah, I'm very happy that he had a great comeback. Especially, I think this cause was from the Global Chess Championship. Even though he lost the first 2 games, he came back and is doing better.
I have to ask you, there's so many great players here in the US. Who is your personal favorite?
My favorite chess player in the US is probably Hikaru Nakamura, because I love playing blitz, and he's like the best blitz player. And I also like Wesley, so his personality and his kindness.
Yeah, he's super kind. Do you think Hikaru is the strongest when it comes to speed chess?
Yes, I feel like he's probably going to win the speed chess championship coming up tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I wish him good luck.
Wow, and Kaya, there is a little story here with Seb and Hikaru. This was at the candidates. Tell us about this. It's a nice score sheet.
So I was playing in the Chess Kid candidates during the candidates that happened in the morning. So we finished in the morning, and after I finished in the morning, the FIDE arbiter of the tournament, Anastasia, she went and gave me the score sheet of Hikaru Ding Liren, the first game. I was so happy, and I went down since Hikaru and Ding finished, and I got them both to sign the autographs on each. And I think this is Hikaru's handwriting. I'm not sure, though.
Wow, so the top chess players continue to inspire the young generation. Lots of moves happening, lots of inspiring moves happening on the chessboard right now. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Sebastian and Tanya. How cool is that score sheet? That could actually be the next world champion signing that Ding Liren, who will play Anna Pomniachtchi next year for the world championship title. Very cool. Very cool. Do you guys keep your score sheets?
I keep all of them. Wow. I don't think I've ever been to score sheet. I know Jovanka's different, though.
Ivanka doesn't keep them. And if Ivanka loses, she rips them up.
Oh, that must be the best feeling. Oh, just like...
Because it's like all that bad karma gone. And yeah, but I do keep memorabilia. I do like to keep little tokens. And
you take the pieces and stuff?
No, not advocating that at all. No.
Just bringing the whole board. I'll take this home as a memory.
That's just theft. Yeah. And then we see the king escape from the king side and move towards the centre. And whilst the players are thinking, I do want to share with you one very nice tweet from Maritza, who tells us the bigger the pout, the better the game. And she's done a drawing of our favourite gold medalist commentator. And she's got your autograph there as well, David.
Shout out to Maritza. Yeah, I think we met briefly in Chennai. Maritza was playing as well in the Olympiad. And yeah, I'm honoured. Thank you. Yeah, I think that picture was based on one of the games that I played there as well.
I can see with the England jacket.
That's right, yeah, the England blazer that we're very proud of. Am I wearing the same shirt here that I was there? That's embarrassing.
I don't think
The pink one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
Thank you, Maritza.
Yeah.
A talented artist drawing a talented chess player. It's very nice.
Yeah. And in the meantime, the pawns have moved up the board, but I'm fully expecting the white rook just to move 2 squares to get behind black's passed c-pawn. And, he gives a check first.
Yeah. That shows that Magnus is playing for the win. He really shouldn't get too carried away. He should try and play this safe over the next few moves, because black's rook and bishop do actually combine better than white's rook and knight. But yeah, it should still be within the drawing margins here. White did have the opportunity to force a draw, as you mentioned, Ivanka. If you go for black's c-pawn in time, yes, you lose your a-pawn as white, but those 2 pawns on the left side will disappear. It's completely symmetrical on the other flank, dead draw. But suddenly, where's white's knight going? Is Magnus really going to get greedy and try and grab some of those black pawns on the right side? Because then you're forgetting about the black c-pawn. And look at this, suddenly a check. White's knight is getting kicked away. The black pawn might be motoring forward. Is Magnus on tilt? He's got 10 minutes. He hasn't used any time at all. It's just, it feels to me as if he's already risking significantly here.
Yeah.
He needs to pull that handbrake and say, OK, let's find a draw now. Because black's pieces are just looking fantastic. Black's king as well. It's a valuable piece in these types of endgames. It can shepherd pawns forward. White's knight retreating.
I just feel that Magnus is being complacent. He feels like he can play almost anything he likes and it will still be a draw. But he's taking such big risks here because, as you say, black's pieces are swarming forward. And you've got to always remember, when it comes to the ending game, it's the quality of the pawns, not the quantity. So in terms of quality, it just depends on how far advanced they are up board, whether they can promote easily. And there we see Duda just attacking the knight. The knight will have to move or be defended.
Yep. I'm expecting maybe the king to retreat and defend this, but yeah, where are you going with your knight? You have to run to some very awkward squares if you want to find safety. Maybe Magnus was just having one eye on the clock. He sees that Duda's down at 1 minute and he thought, OK, I'm going to take some calculated risks, some measured risks. But 1 minute for a player like Duda is still a lot of time. So it is time to backtrack, to backpedal and try to play safe. I advocate just defending that knight now with the white king. And I think it's still OK. Because white's pawn, white's a6 pawn, will cause a distraction at some point. White's rook will be able to slide behind, attacking that black c pawn, maybe giving some checks later. So there's enough defensive resources, but suddenly the tightrope is narrowing. You have a very small path to hold the draw with white.
Okay. I reckon that Magnus will not defend that knight.
Yeah, I think he'll move it?
No, I think he's going to move his rook to the 8th row.
OK, that would be very sneaky, Ivanka. So this position should be a draw, but there's always tricks involved. And Magnus could set a little trap here just by ignoring the threat on this knight. This is very pretty. Just stepping forward with the white rook. And now if the knight is captured, then white would win. A check and a skewer. The king has to run out the way. The next move, the black rook would drop. And white will make a new queen. So it's never too late to set traps. That would also be very interesting. The reason you plant the rook forward 1 square is because right now, yes, the knight is attacked, but you can't come back and check because black's bishop covers that square. So you just threaten to jump to a light square. And yeah, I guess here, just to illustrate why we think this will be a draw eventually, black's pawn at some point will start to push. And maybe white has better here even, but just as an example, the white rook will slide behind, this pawn will disappear, this pawn will disappear, and yeah, the kingside structure here on the right side, no way to make headroads into that one, so dead draw.
Okay. Dead draw. There is now 55 minutes left to cast your vote for the best game of the Champions Chess Tour season 2022. Only 55 more minutes. So the way to do it is you head to chess24.com/tour. If you scroll just a little bit down, you will find the vote. There are 9 games you can vote for. You'll find the link to the Chess24 site where you can check the games. There's also videos for each of the games. Magnus is nominated for a few of them. Duda is also nominated in a few of them. There is that big Mamedyarov game when he beat Anish Giri. There are 9 different games, and you have now 55 minutes to cast your vote. This is one of the bonus prizes this season, so the winners, the 2 players in that game, will get a big bunch of that bonus prize fund, which is over $80,000 big right now. Magnus nominated for quite a few of them. Actually, I think there's 2 Carlsen Duda games that you can vote for.
Wow, yeah. I mean, these 2, they've had some real ding-dong battles throughout the year. And, OK, with this last move, Magnus didn't go for the draw. We saw the white king poke its head out. Black checked the king back, and the position repeat itself once. And Magnus is playing on. He's attacking this black bishop, but I'm wondering what happens here if, for example, black tries to keep things simple and just takes the white knight. Does white have anything better than taking the black bishop? Then we would see a draw most likely. Still, Ivanka?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually be tempted to try to play for more. You know, Magnus is taking risks. Why can't black do the same? I would be tempted just to retreat the bishop 1 square forward.
Yeah, back to c5? Or?
Yeah, back to c5 and kind of again ask the question. Or I could, if I was feeling super confident, actually I might even put the bishop on the d2 square, because after all, the bishop on d2 will guard the c1 square.
That's really ambitious, and Duda's ticking down to 30 seconds. If he moves his bishop, we'll see a lot of twists and turns ahead. I think if he wants to play it safe, if he wants to commit to the draw now, Duda, he'll just take the white knight with black's rook, but he's not got that much time. He looks away, maybe in a bit of frustration there, Duda, but now we will see the game steer towards a draw. The bishop disappears. Black's rook has got to go after that white a-pawn before it's too late. Put it back where it came from, that rook, and the game is automatically almost a draw. There's no way to keep these 2 pawns on the board.
And before the game quickly fizzles out, we do have a Caption This competition where you can answer using the hashtag #ChessChamps. And there the rook does go behind the pawn. The game is going to fizzle out. And
any second now, they'll find a way to repeat the moves.
OK.
There we go, a check. The king and rook do a little dance. The position repeats itself. And it has been a hard-fought game, but it is a draw.
First game in their match, a draw. Magnus Carlsen taking a big sip of the liquid death, the nice water, sparkling water that they are drinking in Shack 15. He will have now 22 minutes. Magnus Carlsen get ready for game 2, where he will have the black pieces. And we're going to go to San Francisco to see if we can get a reaction from Magnus.
Magnus, you were really up on the clock, but the endgame was still very tricky. Were you ever worried?
Yeah, I mean, I missed bishop h6 completely, which is, not ideal when his last move was king h7. And then, yeah, I mean, I thought before that position was about equal. Maybe I was slightly worse, but after that, I thought it was much worse. Fortunately, I managed to liquidate pretty quickly into something that was drawn, and then I had the slight chances, if any, especially because of the time, but there was nothing.
You played this new interesting idea with bishop e3. Were you, did it work to perfection considering how much he burnt the clock?
Not really. I mean, I remember I had this position against Kasim in the in 2019 Isle of Man, and I burnt a lot of time there as well. And I played CD5, which is a decent move, but he should go ED there. So I was thinking during the game, like today, like I didn't remember why bishop e3 was not good, and then he played rook e8, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why. I mean, the position just is nothing for white, regardless of what you do.
That's funny because Rustam actually mentioned that after your game against him in the analysis, you mentioned rook e8 as a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it right after he played the move.
All right, well, good luck for the second game.
Thank you.
Thanks.
20 minutes until game 2. Game 1 is going on for young Prag today. He is playing his fellow Indian and fellow teenager, Arjun Erigaisi. It's been a tough few days now for Prag, but Arjun has won 3 matches in a row. But in this first game again between those two, the bar is very much over to Prag's side.
Yeah, it looks like a masterclass by Prag. I've been playing through the game. He's steered this one towards an advantage, and he's also won a pawn in the process. If you do a quick count, Black is 1 pawn up, but it's about to become 2 because Black's knight is going to leap back and win either the g4 pawn or the e4 pawn. White can't hold everything together. Also note how the white king is cut off. Black's rook does a great job on the d file of stopping the white king from shifting sides, and therefore Erigaisi's pretty much forced to just push pawns. This pawn is not going anywhere. Prag will just, at the right moment, capture another pawn with his knight and start running with his extra material. It looks very straightforward. Black's king can start advancing down the board to g5 towards those white pawns. Yeah, it looks quite straightforward at this point.
Yeah,
Jovanka?
Looks totally winning, if you ask me. And the king does take a step forward. I mean, it can even step forward again. But I think I would just simply capture the pawn. It's up for grabs, and there's only so long I can resist temptation.
Yeah, I mean, what can be more simple than just taking a pawn, a free pawn, no consequences, no compensation for white? I'm not really sure what Arjun's doing. I guess he just can't find a plan, and he's got less than 1 minute on the clock, so he's just pushing, trying to distract Anish Giri. Not Anish Giri, Pragnananda, sorry. And okay, that pawn does drop, so 2 pawn advantage. Also, remember, we've seen this yesterday, we've seen it several times throughout the tour. H pawns are the best against knights. White's knight will struggle to stop that black H pawn from running. And you can start pushing it now. Or Black's king can come even closer towards the center. Plenty of winning moves. There we go. There's another weak pawn, of course. White does have an isolated pawn in the center. It's about to be a 3 pawn advantage, and we might see Erigaisi resign any moment. 2 pawns is already too many, but 3, that's the tipping point.
It definitely is. I mean, fair play to Erigaisi. He is fighting hard. You know, he's trying to generate some counterplay by targeting Black's pawns on the left, but unfortunately, it's just mission impossible. And he's taken some time out to improve his king. The pawns get traded off. And like you say, David, the H pawn will come running.
Yeah, I mean, you can just capture in the center as well. Black's king can get greedy, I think. Don't see any downside there. You just have to calculate perhaps a couple of checks, but Prag still has 1 minute. He's so good in these scenarios, and he does abandon Black's H pawn, but he's going after the key E pawn now, and Black's knight is going to do the grabbing. Yeah, just textbook endgame technique. I mean, you mentioned Erigaisi's fighting hard, but Prag is not allowing him to fight effectively. That's the key. Erigaisi's trying his best to create counterplay. There we go. The H pawn does disappear, but Black's knight can then now just jump back, win a second pawn. Game over. White's knight is too far from the action now.
Yeah,
White's knight is almost trapped on the edge of the board.
It is, actually. I mean, for starters, you would calculate knight takes pawn, and like you say, can you trap that knight, put your rook on the G line? It's gone.
Yeah, White's knight is almost, it's almost falling off the board. So Erigaisi lifts his rook up. Black has 2 connected pass pawns. Any exchange here, any knight trade or any rook trade would end the game. I don't think Erigaisi would continue there, but why not push pawns first and foremost? Pass pawns are there to be pushed, and this pawn now is attacked by White's pieces, but it can be defended by Black's knight.
And indeed it will. And then it will be the E pawn that comes marching. Here it comes. And all the while, White has nothing to do. I mean, White just has to sit there and wait. And I'm fully expecting that Erigaisi will just throw in the towel.
Yeah, he'll raise that white flag. He's going to resign. I think Erigaisi, there's simply nothing else to do. Prag has showed he knows how to win this one. He's protected everything. And it's the E pawn.
Is it the time?
I think it's...
Is it time?
It might be
Is
this.
it time?
It might be time for this, Erigaisi.
Is it time?
I'm not gonna...
I like it.
And this, incidentally, is the T-shirt that you guys can win at home if you answer our Caption This competition.
That is a cool T-shirt.
It's going to happen, Jovanka. I think Black just needs to play one more move. He's got to retreat his rook, pin that white knight, and White's going to resign. Where's Simon when you need him?
Yeah, okay. It's on the verge. It's on the edge. Okay, no.
He doesn't go for the pin?
Okay,
surprising.
But this is quite brutal. I mean, going for the A pawn.
Strong enough.
The E pawn is also going to start advancing. We're going to see it.
2 squares away now. The white knight retreats, attacking Black's rook. But Prag doesn't need a rook. He's simply going to keep pushing. And now he's going to block the white rook's connection with that black pawn. There we go, the knight blockades. Black is about to make a new queen, and he's going to resign Erigaisi. We do have a result.
Wow, Prag takes the first point in this all-Indian battle with a great game, having the black pieces. He rushes off Prag, the last player in the San Francisco arena to finish the first round of games on this final day in the tour finals. I hope we get a reaction after that beautiful win.
Prag, you've taken the lead in this match. To us, it looked like flawless technique. Are you happy with your endgame play?
Yeah, I think it was a good game overall. Maybe I was slightly worse in the opening, but after I got this D4 and knight C6, I think Black should be completely fine. And I think somewhere there he misplayed and got to. I think this B4 was just a bad move. Like I got knight D3 and just won a pawn, and yeah, it was a smooth game after that.
G6 was the move that impressed us all at the end game. Do you feel that was the moment, the crucial, decisive moment?
Yeah, actually, I'd foreseen it earlier itself, so it was kind of easy to find for me there, because otherwise my knight is kind of stuck there because I can't take knight G4 at all, because there is rook G3 and he's threatening some rook E2 or something like that, and my knight is stuck, so I have to find G6.
Well, you did. All the best for the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic start to the final day for Prag. We came in very late in the game, but how did he win it, David?
So there were some key moments. I might just need a second to pull it up. This was the key moment where Prag clinched it. He mentioned that he did win a pawn thanks to an earlier slip from Erigaisi, but you can't get too hasty in any endgame. Here, Prag calmly pushed his g-pawn forward, and we'll show why that was so good in a moment. If he'd been greedy, however, and captured first with the black knight, this weak pawn, then white does obtain serious counterplay. Suddenly, the white rook shifts, and after the black knight moves, one of Black's pawns drops, a key pawn, and suddenly Black's position collapses. The Black king now in some serious danger. So he avoided that pitfall, Prag. He simply pushed his pawn forward, and this posed an impossible problem to the white knight. The white knight is the only good piece for Erigaisi. If it moves now and captures a pawn, for example, it gets trapped on the edge of the board, and instead, Erigaisi had to simply capture. This allowed Black's king to get active. The white pawn pushed forward, king came to g5, and only now did Prag start going after the white pawns. Really calm, really patient strategy, and as we saw later on, those black pawns on the king's side did decide the game.
Great start for young Prag on the final day of the tour finals. He is up by 1 point in his final match here against fellow Indian Arjun Erigaisi. And Indian teenagers, they have made a big mark on the tour this season. Arjun, he made it all the way to the final in the Julius Baer Generation Cup.
Maybe Black is winning.
The king is going to hide.
Yeah, look at the bar. It's saying 100.
And just like that, Erigaisi wins. That's a killer.
I think he might resign.
He's been on fire, and here, winning against one of the legends in chess.
We see a really nice finish here after rook takes pawn, and the black knight is trapped. White's pawn runs through and wins.
What a start for Arjun Erigaisi. Here it is. We have a teenager in the final in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. He knocks out Liam Le, one of the top players this season on the tour. It has been a season full of historical moments made by chess teenagers, geniuses at just 15, 16, 17 years old, and one of them is only 13 years old. Abhimanyu Mishra, the first day of the Air Things Masters is probably a day that young chess player will never forget.
Mishra is about to win.
Yeah.
It's almost guaranteed at this point.
Wow.
Eric down to 2 seconds as well. He needs to move. It's just a cleaning up job now for Mishra.
He's being ruthless right now over the board.
Flashy finish.
Nice kind of tactic there.
No chance now of Eric saving this game. No plan, simply. And look at that. He bobs his head. He's trading queens and he wins the game.
It looks like he could win another one.
He should win this one. I think if he had 30 minutes on his clock, it would be a guarantee. But it's all about the clock and also that white king. There's going to be traps. There's going to be threats against it. And we're going to see checkmate on the board.
Good to see it.
Mishra celebrates. Checkmate next move. The black king trapped.
Wow, what an impressive performance by 13-year-old Abhimanyu Mishra. Not only did he win his game against Erik Hansen, here he is also winning against one of the top 10 players in the world. What a big moment for Mishra. At only 13 years old, he's also the youngest grandmaster in history. And teenagers, Ivanka, they've been a huge factor this season on the tour. How fun has it been?
It's
to
been
see them
tremendous
just
fun.
beat these top players.
Yeah, and the great thing about them is that they play fighting chess. You don't see any quick draws. You see them just take their chances against the top players, and they've scored a lot of upsets. And it just goes to show what happens when you give these young players the platform to play against the world's best.
What is the advantage, David, of being a chess player in your teens? What are you better at often?
There's a few things. You're very optimistic. When you're young, you don't have any fear. You're not afraid to step forward, attack. Often when players play Magnus, they're fearful. But the youngsters know they want to take down the king. Also, you have a lot of energy. You're happy to knuckle down, play these long games. And you don't have too many distractions. Some of the older players in the tournament, they have families. For example, Mamedyarov, he has kids. He's got other distractions, other things to worry about. Anish Giri has a family too. But the youngsters, no, it's just chess. They can study as much as they can. They've also all got great coaches around them. Credit to the coaches of the players who played on the tour this season. They've got this great support network. And yeah, all of those factors combined means that they can fight against anyone, even more experienced rivals.
Yeah, and without like players like Wesley So as a regular this season on the tour, do you think the teenagers have been a big motivation for Magnus this season?
Definitely. Magnus loves to fight. We saw moments last season when he was getting frustrated. Players were just trying to kind of force draws against him. He wasn't able to get in the flow occasionally. But the youngsters, they've forced him to hit another level, Magnus. They're taking the fight to him. You see how happy Magnus is. Even when Prag beats him, he's saying, oh, I appreciate that. I'm out of my comfort zone. They're pushing me. They're forcing me to learn, to adapt. And yeah, I think all of the more experienced players, they're embracing the challenge as well.
Yeah, I guess it's safe to say, Ivanka, the future is very bright for chess.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, I do remember in one tournament, I think it was the AIM Chess Rapid, where Magnus struggled against the teenagers. He beat everyone, but couldn't beat the kids.
Exactly. Now, with age, though, comes experience. And you would maybe think that online rapid chess is mostly for the youngsters, but in the Julius Baer Generation Cup, one of the biggest legends of chess, Vasily Ivanchuk, gave us great entertainment.
I could just look at Chucky, just put the video up at full screen, bit of, classical music in the back. No. I mean, look at it. He's such a interesting character to look at, isn't he?
We talk about controlling the centre in chess. Look at what White has done with his formation there. It's just kind of everything protected, everything controlled.
Got 7 seconds. What's he doing?
He's
Come on, move it. Oh, okay.
He makes the move. So relaxed.
That's a bulldozer move. Look at that
Killer.
pawn just opening up the position.
Oh, I think the tilt has started now. The black queen can just go and take the white light squared bishop.
Oh no, look at his face.
Falling apart.
Oh, no.
He's just a rook down now. It just looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful for White. Wow.
Critical
What a move. What a move by Ivanchuk.
Yeah, beautiful.
Bang. That wins the game. There we go. He takes the win, Ivanchuk.
That's a killer.
I think he might resign.
Really? Already?
Well, I think he might be losing that knight, actually, as well. I mean, the knight has nowhere... I can't see how you save that knight.
He's been on fire. And here, winning against one of the legends in chess, Vasily Ivanchuk. What a game in only 25 moves.
And it is captured. Wow.
Whoa.
He lets the queen appear on the board, but now Ivanchuk, it feels like he's winning. They're so loose, these pieces.
It feels like he should have a forced win here, even,
Whoa, what a move by Aronian. What a trick.
And he's just saying, take the rook, because the knight is going to jump to the d6 square and fork everything. And now it just looks like it's winning for white.
What happened?
This knight check is going to dislodge the black king. White is going to make a new queen. Game over. Ivantrik shakes his head.
Oh. Poor Chucky.
In hands now, and he does click that resign button.
He was knocked out in the prelims, but that was huge entertainment. We've had legends, we've had teenagers, and we also had 3 women participating this season on the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. One of them, women's world champion Ju Wenjun, made a great performance and almost qualified for the knockout stage.
And now, is there a knockout for black?
Just take the knight.
Take the knight.
Take the knight, because
She's winning
queen
now.
takes rook.
Yeah, she's winning. This is a huge blunder by Wei Yi. He's missed a really important trick.
Okay, the queens are off, and now it's going to be very, very difficult for Wei Yi.
One last threat for White. White was threatening to go up to the top of the board with his rook and check, but no more checks. Has Wei Yi given up? There we go.
Wow! What a performance today by Ju Wenjun. She beats her fellow Chinese player. Yeah, and one of the highest rated players in the world. That was a fantastic performance by Ju Wenjun. And for you, Ivanka, as a female chess player yourself, what has it been like to see the women compete on the tour this season?
It's been fantastic to have that visibility. So to see the women just play the best players in the world, to see them perform with confidence. And I have to say, I really have a soft spot for that particular moment when Ju Wenjun, she almost qualified.
Oh, so close.
And she came so close. And I remember it was almost a miraculous recovery at the end. But it's just inspiring. This is the great thing. When you see women play and young girls or anyone watching, they'll go, OK, I can aspire to be that person. And that's a very important moment.
Yeah. Who could we maybe see on the 2023 season of the tour, David? What women are up there and fighting right now?
I mean, Ju Wenjun, women's world champion. We've seen in the candidates, there are plenty of strong players. Lei Tingjae, there's the Muzichuk sisters, there's Humpi Koneru, there's almost countless. There's a lot of young girls coming up, right, Ivanka, as well, who in future years, they will be challenging, not just for those titles, but also in these types of events. It will be great to see them given the opportunity, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about future for chess in general, but what do you say about future for women in chess, Ivanka?
Yeah, it's an important subject, actually. And the way that you can just improve women's chess is, again, just improve the visibility. Just have women playing, have women commentating, have women arbiters, have women all levels of the board, all levels, and just support their ventures. And we're seeing it more and more. You know, there's now women exclusive tournaments running alongside, like the Tata Steel Invitational. And it's so great to see women just competing with the world's best, because the more that they compete at that level, the better they will become. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no women here in the tour finals of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, but I have a feeling, if not next year, in a few years, we will see a women chess player fight for the title as well. Here are the results from the first set of games on the final day here in the tour finals. A draw between Wesley So and Anish Giri, both playing in San Francisco. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, the bar was over to his side for big parts of the game, eventually losing that game to Liam Le. Did you check that out, David?
I did. There was a huge turnaround just before the end. Shakhriyar went from winning to losing in just one move. Perhaps that's tiredness playing in the World Team Championship earlier today. But either way, Liam showing his resourcefulness.
Yeah. It was a draw between Magnus Carlsen and Jan-Christoph Duda, but a big win for Prag against Arjun Erigaisi in that first game, and Prag will have the white pieces in game 2. We're going to follow that battle between the two young Indians. Prag has been a regular this season on the tour. Arjun has been playing quite a bit in the last few tournaments, but not too many times have they faced each other. One win for Prag, one draw, and that win came in the previous game.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't faced each other so often on the tour. It feels like these two are regular fixtures now at the top of rapid chess, at the top of world chess even. So this is the start of a budding rivalry. And Erigaisi will not want to lie down. He will want to strike back immediately. And Prag with the white pieces, will he be able to take an even more commanding lead?
17 years old, Pragnananda. Arjun Erigaisi is 19 years old, and Arjun played on the Indian first team in the chess Olympiad. Pragg played on the second team, but the second team actually did better, and Pragg did fantastic. On board 3, he took the bronze medal. David took the gold medal on board 3. Was that prestigious, do you think, David, for the Indian second team to actually beat the first team?
Yeah, I think it was just a landmark moment where it was a coming of the new generation, a changing of the guard. I think maybe the biggest blunder that the second team made was not including Erigaisi. It could have been all teenagers in the second team, and I think he might have been the missing ingredient that would have given them the gold medals. Both of these guys actually got medals, individual medals as well, on board 3.
Oh, that's true.
So Erigaisi and Pragg.
Erigaisi took the silver.
Erigaisi took the silver
Behind you.
on board 3, yes.
So right now, in this image, we have the medalists from the Chess Olympiad on board 3. Not now, because I'm in here, but if you put David on, gold medalist David, silver medalist Arjun, and bronze medalist Pragg.
I don't feel worthy. These two are stronger now.
In the right order as well.
Yeah, but these two, I mean, what superstars they are. They were so nice to me as well up there when we were on the podium. We had a chat. Erigaisi was congratulating me, and yeah, Pragg as well. Shared a podium with his sister. Both him and his sister won bronze medals. Meanwhile, a lot of moves in this one. It was the Slav defense, rock solid for Black. But you can see how well they know each other. They both predicted up to this point move 13. Instantly played, Ivanka.
And Arjun was in fact repeating an opening that he'd played against yesterday's opponent, which has completely slipped my mind.
Who, Arjun?
Arjun, yeah. He beat Anish, didn't he?
That's true.
No?
I will know. He beat Liam Le.
Liam Le, yes.
It's been a long season.
Sometimes it happens like you. Yeah. There's always one player that I forget. I was trying to remember someone. I was like, oh, who is it? And I was like, Shaq, of course. And
Liam Le.
Yeah, Liam, here is Liam.
Yeah, okay.
Well. And here the light squared bishop develops. And they're in new territory now.
So here, there's not too many imbalances in the position. It's mainly just that classic kind of battle between the bishop pair and Black's minor pieces. White has that bishop pair. The centre's blocked, very blocked right now. So White's bishops don't look too impressive. The other imbalance is Black having the semi-open H-file. Due to those double pawns now that Black has on the G-file, Black's rook is open. So if you're Arjun, OK, if he pushes a pawn, if you're Black here, you don't really want to rush to castle the king, because maybe Black's rook is actually more active where it currently stands than it would be towards the centre. So Black's king could just inch its own way towards safety behind that pawn mass on the right side without moving his rook away off that H-file. Meanwhile, Pragg doesn't really want to castle as White either, because then the Black rook is primed to attack. And I've got to say, I love these types of positions for Black in general, just because you're so solid. And actually, it's up to White. There's a lot of pressure on White to find a plan. Yeah. Which side do you go with your king? Do you push pawns in the centre? With Black, you can just kind of sit and, yeah, no weaknesses.
That's very, very true. I actually play this position for both White and Black. And I have to say, I have a slight preference for the White position, because I feel that the White king is that touch more safer. For instance, one of the plans that I've done in the past, which perhaps isn't so attractive now, is actually to castle the king all the way over to the left. And the whole idea with that is, like, as soon as Black gets ready to commit the king, which they will do at some stage, then the H-pawn will just go zooming up the board and you have a ready-made attack. Now, the reason why I'm not 100% confident with castling the king this particular way is because look at Black's pieces. They're primed for that king run, and they're getting ready to seize space on the left side.
Yeah, so we could see a battle of Black pushing pawns on this flank, White pushing pawns maybe in the centre, but also on the other flank. Yeah, it's a really kind of tense position, which could well explode and become very chaotic in the course of 2 or 3 moves. And it's a bit of a standoff right now, neither side wanting to commit their king. And yeah, I definitely don't think we'll see Pragg castle this move unless he's got a concrete idea up his sleeve. More likely, White will prepare. White will start getting ready at some point to push forward and gain space. I don't think you can kind of rush to do this. There are tactics in the air. For example, after a pawn trade here, Black does have tactics immediately. He does castle, actually, but Black here would have a nice tactic, hitting the queen, hitting the bishop, and if the knight is captured, Black's queen would pounce. White's pieces are very loose, and this would have been great for black. But meanwhile, he does actually, rather than push his pawn in the forward in the centre, he does commit his king. He does castle into the line of fire, apparently. Jovanka, you look confused by that
I am
one.
very confused because white doesn't do this. White generally actually either goes to the left with the king or actually steps to the f2 square. You rarely put your king in this particular position because, like you've indicated, the black rook is open. It's primed to start an attack.
Yeah, there could be serious attacking ideas against this white king. I must confess I did something similar to this myself at the Olympiad. Like you said, I didn't castle, but I pushed my king in this direction. And the whole idea was to put the king on this square, just to keep it on a light square. Black has no light square bishop, so it's very hard to attack this piece once it reaches g2. But you're right, Jovanka. It's very surprising to see Prag commit so early. It's equally surprising, I've got to be honest here, that Erigaisi, after seeing the white king on the king side, he just plays on the other flank. He pushes his b-pawn. It's as if he was expecting the white king to go the other way. But it just feels inconsistent. White castles kingside, so you play on the queen side. You should be maybe switching attention here towards the white king side. But yeah, we'll see what both players have in store. I think it's up to Prag now to consolidate his king's position, just to build some type of fortress around it. I'm very much expecting him to push a pawn over the next couple of moves, just because you don't want to allow black to move his queen out with gain of tempo, or perhaps even the bishop to gain time. You want to keep the square safe as long as possible, as quickly as possible as well. So I would expect this move. Other candidates come into mind, just centralizing the white rooks, maybe stepping back with the white knight into the center. Lots of options here.
Yep. Prag is thinking. He's up by 1 point in his match against Arjun Erigaisi. We could see he was in a great mood in the interview with Tanya after that first game. And it seems, Tanya, everyone is just very happy in San Francisco today.
Absolutely, Kaya, as are we. Well, you've got such amazing chess action going on and some incredible guests. What's not to love? And we've got a very special one here with us. It is Guido Imbens. He is from the Netherlands. He is a Nobel Prize winner in economics and a chess player. Guido, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thanks very much for having me.
I want to start by just asking you, because you're here from the Netherlands, are you rooting for Anish Giri? Is he your favorite chess player?
Yes, I am rooting for him, and I'm sorry he hasn't done particularly well this tournament, but he's done great in the past, and hopefully he'll do better again in the future.
Do you follow the events, and have you been following the tour?
I've been following the tour. I still try to follow the main tournaments, especially some in the Netherlands. Of course, they have very regularly top tournaments there.
Guido, tell us, you are a Nobel Prize winner in economic studies. I want to ask you, as a chess player, what are the similarities? How has chess helped you in your journey?
But so when I was younger, when I was in high school, I played a lot of chess. And I think the main thing where it really helped me is that it really kind of taught me how to focus. In those days, we were still playing kind of with classical controls. And so we would play 4 or 5 hour games. And it was just really important. You would kind of just shut out the rest of the world. You would just focus on one thing for 4 or 5 hours. And that's still really important in the work I do now, where kind of just at times I need to think really hard and really be able to kind of just really focus. And that's where the chess experience was just particularly useful.
So throughout your economics career, has chess played a big role?
I've not played that much kind of since I started going to college, but I sort of kept following the tournaments, kept following the World Chess Championships. And so now it's great to actually be able to attend some of the tournaments in person again. So that's been really fun.
And you mentioned that you were also a professor along with Ken Rogoff, who's also a very famous economist as well as a chess player. Tell us about that experience and your interaction with him.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so when I was on the faculty at Harvard, Ken Rogoff was also in the economics department there. So obviously, he's a very good chess player. And so we would talk occasionally. He would tell me about some of the meetings he'd had with Bobby Fischer. And so we would talk about some of the things going on in the chess world now. And so it was just really fun having him as a colleague.
Awesome. And are you enjoying your time here watching the players in action at the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour?
Yeah, no, that's been a lot of fun. It's been a long time since I've actually visited a tournament in person, but I did that kind of fairly regularly when I was in high school, and just really interesting to see it again now and see how the tournament is going.
Thank you so much for joining us. There we have it. Chess and economics, a perfect fit. Back to you guys in the studio.
Wow, we're almost getting a little starstruck here. That is huge, and how cool to have him in San Francisco. A fan of both mathematics and chess. We do have a few moves on the board. What's happening here?
Yeah, just a couple of moves since we last visited this position. Essentially, white is regrouping his pieces. Pragg, we did see him retreat his knight. The white knight was about to maybe get hit by some black pawns, so some preemptive retreats there, and white's rook now centralized. So it does look like white's pieces are huddled in the center, but if Pragg gets the opportunity to step forward the white e-pawn, his position, his pieces especially, will be given a lot more life. And Arjun, meanwhile, has used his last couple of moves to gain space, and now black's knight is about to jump into the white half. Black's knight might well just land on the c4 square, and it will cause some nuisance there. Jovanka, what do you think of these recent developments?
It's still a very cagey position. I'm not really sure who's better, I have to be honest with you. I do quite like the black side, but then again, I can see the potential, as you've highlighted, for white, just some manoeuvring, and white will have the potential to expand in the center, and that will be very uncomfortable for black. So as far as I can see, I would say even Stevens. I'm not going to commit to a decision.
Yeah, both sides have reason to be happy. So some positions we say are equal. That means chances are level. It's hard to kind of mess with the equilibrium. But this one, it could go either way. It's just about who's more creative, who's more tenacious, perhaps, when they come under pressure. It's first white who had to react to a threat. White doesn't want to part with his bishop pair. If that black knight had been able to trade itself off for one of white's bishops, then only black could be better. So Pragg takes a step back, preserving his bishops, and if he gets one more move, Pragg, he will step forward, push that white pawn to e4, and perhaps the momentum would change. So, yeah, again, it's up to Erigaisi. He's got more time. How can he continue the threats, continue before white gets organised?
He needs to win a game after losing the first one. And in that interview with Tanya, we did see someone who's received the Nobel Prize for economic science. And it reminded me, I just have to tell you guys, about John Nash, another legendary recipient of that award, who came to Norway in 2015 to receive another award for his brilliant work. He had one request, and that was to meet with Magnus Carlsen. And he did, and I know they talked about chess for a long time. And tragically, after doing so and traveling back to the US, he died in a car crash on his way from the airport. And there is a fantastic movie about John Nash called A Beautiful Mind, so if you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. And we're joined now also by someone else who is a big fan of mathematics. He's done all the stats for the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour in the 2022 season. Ty, it's good to see you again.
Great to see you.
Are you a big fan of these recipients of this Nobel Prize Award for economic science, doing what you do with stats?
Yeah, a huge admirer of people who are actually competent in math instead of just amateurs like me. I'm a fan of them the way I'm a fan of Magnus in chess.
Brilliant combo for us. We met up with you after we saw you did the chess for what is it? Chess by the Numbers Twitter account, and we figured we need to bring Ty on the team. We need to do some stats on the tour, and you've done a bunch of them over the last 9 months. What has it been like following the tour and doing all these stats?
Oh, it's been so much fun. It's stuff that I would have been interested in looking at anyway, but being able to just really focus on the tour and dedicate to it let me dig deeper than I probably would have if I was just doing it for fun. So I found so much more I got to dig into, calculating the FCI, calculating performance ratings, and just all sorts of opening stats, and being able to play with all these different ideas. It's been a blast.
Has anything surprised you at all looking into these stats?
I've been been really surprised by how the youngsters have done on the tour. I know we're going to look at our bonus prizes in a minute, and one of them is essentially the underdog prize. It's how well people have performed above their baseline expectation of their FIDE rating. And I knew that the youngsters could compete, but I didn't expect so many to be up at the top of that prize list and not just playing to the level we've seen from them in Over the Board Classical, but playing even stronger than that and showing us how the degree to which they may still be underrated in the main world rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's take a look at those stats that you mentioned. So there are bonus prizes this season. One of them is for tour performance over expectations. And there's 3 categories for players who played at least 1 tournament, for players who have played at least 3, and for players who have played at least 5 tournaments. And is this set now, or can stuff change here with this game and 2 more rapid games to go?
This is not at all set. Arjun and Liam have both been bouncing back and forth with above and below Vincent Keimer, who is static at 72. And if either of them loses another game or 2 today, they could easily drop back below. So Keimer's still in contention if Arjun and Liam both lose another game, and also if one of Arjun or Liam starts winning, they could lock it up. But there's, this game that we're looking at right now with Arjun and Prague could be a key to deciding which of those 3 players takes down this prize, along with Liam's games with Mamedjarov.
Wow, okay, that's super interesting. So we need to keep a close eye on Arjun and Liam. And then we have the Fighting Chess Index, which is something new this season on the tour. Is this set?
I think this one is pretty set. Arjun improved from 67.47 to 67.58 in that last game, but it's the way this formula works, it's pretty hard in a single game to improve it very much. You can, if you have a short draw, you can drop it really badly, but gains come very incrementally. So I can't say it's mathematically impossible for Arjun to catch Aronian, but I think it's very unlikely that he will. He would have to have probably 3 more decisive games today in openings that are generally low draw rates, and they would all have to be very long games.
So those are the factors that count in on the Fighting Chess Index: playing long games and choosing specific openings, and also playing decisive games.
Yeah, those, and then with a big penalty for short draws, which is less than 30 moves.
Okay, super interesting. So we will pay attention to that one as well for Arjun Erigaisi. Who has impressed you the most this season, looking at especially the tour rating, which we introduced this season?
Well, we've got a really late contender for that with Wesley So, who's, after a slow start's come on really strong. And I definitely hope we get to see more of him next season, because he can clearly contend for everything on this tour if he gets the chance to play enough events. But before that, my answer was, and still is, Prague. Prague has had just such an incredible season, playing his way into that status of tour regular. And that first time he won a game against Magnus, he didn't even have the greatest overall tournament that time. And over the year, he's matured so much. And at this point, it's just standard for him to be a threat to beat anyone and to be in contention. You expect him in the regular events to qualify for the knockouts. You expect him to be winning matches in majors. And that progression over the course of the year from a surprise to just a standby has been really pleasant to watch. Huge fan.
Yeah. And the tour rating, it's been super important actually that we got that this season, because we know a player like Magnus Carlsen is very much motivated by ratings. And I want to ask you, can Magnus finish above 2,900 on the tour?
He can. Okay. He's 28.92 right now after the first draw. So he'll lose a point or 2. I think he's going to have to win the next 2 games if he wants to finish at over 2,900. I think one more draw takes it off the table. But if he can win 2.5 to 0.5 with two wins in a row, this game and then next game, that would get him there for sure.
Oh, we should
and let him end the year in style.
Yeah, we should have Tanya run in there and tell him. I can see the bar is slightly over to his side. And the tour rating, obviously, this is only the first season with it. Will that just grow more and more important as all the players get more and more games in there?
I think so, yeah. So the way it's set up is because we started this year as each player played their first event, we seeded it with their FIDE rating as their baseline to start from, and then use their games on tour to let them fluctuate and stabilize it where they are in this format. But for future seasons, we're going to carry over their ratings from this season to next season, and only players that have never been on the tour before would bring in that provisional FIDE rating. So yeah, we're going to definitely, just as more players get an opportunity to compete on the tour, and as the players who were regulars this year come back and log more games, it's just going to be a more and more stable measure of how strong are they in this particular online hybrid rapid format with esports philosophy.
Absolutely. Oh, it's going to be interesting to follow next season as well. Kai, thank you so much for the work you've done for the tour this season, and we look forward to seeing you again next season.
Absolutely. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. That has given a lot to the tour to actually have these stats, right?
Yeah, he's the man, Ty. We rely on him a lot, and some really fascinating insights as well. I love that phrase, esport philosophy.
I know.
That's what we're embracing here, but also the players have been embracing. And yeah, I mean, those numbers, they all have meanings behind them. It does really back up the fact, which is also kind of seconded by the results. These youngsters making their breakthrough, and they're only going to get better. Those stats are only going to be more interesting as the seasons go on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so we did mention the bonus prizes. There is one last one, and that is for best game of the season. And you now have 8 minutes to cast your vote. 9 games have been nominated by all the experts across the Chess24 streams. And it's your turn now to vote for your favorite. You can see video, and you can go through the games that are nominated and vote for your favorite. And 2 players in that game will receive a bonus prize. I think Prague has at least 1 game in there. Oh, one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, said by David Howell.
That's right. One of the games that I nominated was by Prague, of course, when he defeated Jordan van Foreest. And really nice sacrificial attack. Yeah. And meanwhile, he's going for something similar in this game. He's really opened up the centre now. It has come at the cost of strategic weaknesses in White's position. White has an isolated e-pawn. That pawn in the centre is nicely blockaded by one of the Black Knights. Also, White's bishops both have retreated to the first rank. But by opening lines, Prague has got active with his knight. White's queen looks nicely placed. On the light squares, Black might be vulnerable long-term, Ivanka.
Yeah, definitely. If the 2 bishops get motoring, as you've mentioned, then yes. But for the time being, Black is rock solid and doesn't seem to be too many problems. But I will have to say, I wasn't a big fan of Arjun opening the position like this. I actually thought the position would remain closed for a lot longer. But I guess Arjun was thinking, well, the counterplay along the dark squares is going to be sufficient.
Yeah, I've got to say, I love his decision to open it up, because when you face the 2 bishops, that's rule number 1. You have to accelerate the play. You can't let White just stabilise and reorganise and slowly step forward. But yeah, it does depend on the next few moves. Of course, he needs to justify his decision to open things by keeping White's light squared bishop, especially the only unrivaled bishop. He has to keep that one caged, or at least keep it passive. And yeah, also I do love Arjun's just body language there, just arms crossed, as if he's the boss. Nothing can disturb him, and he only kind of breaks from that pose when he's about to make a move. And with 8 minutes, he's ready to perhaps, I was going to say, activate one of the Black rooks. You could have offered a rook trade as well. He does try to block the White Queen's diagonal towards the Black King. Also direct threat of trying to win White's e-pawn, that central weakness. I like it.
I like it too. It's a very active move, but I have to say, you know, there isn't too much of a threat to actually win the pawn, because even if White were to lose this pawn, then suddenly the bishop that wasn't doing anything on b1 has kind of sprung to life. So I think in this particular case, the threat is stronger than the execution.
Yeah, and meanwhile, this kind of semi-threat, or it's unclear whether it was a threat, it was refuted by white's knight jumping in, so no time to capture that pawn now. There's a double attack hitting the black queen. This knight had to be removed, and white has indeed opened up his bishop's diagonal. Jovanka, you mentioned that this bishop is now much happier due to the absence of this pawn, potentially some life now along this diagonal, and also the creation of a passed pawn. This is either a very strong pawn in the endgame marching forward, or it could be a weakness that black has now blockaded. He's planted his bishop on this square. Black does have a really attractive dark square blockade here. The bishop can never really be removed. The knight as well on an outpost in the center can't be kicked by pawns. And I am fearful that some tactics might happen against the white king on those dark squares. If the black queen ever finds her way in onto kind of this diagonal lined up with her bishop, if she ever tries to sneak into h2, that would spell the end. It takes a while to do that. The black queen doesn't have many safe paths onto that diagonal, but something to watch out for, maybe.
Definitely, and using that same idea, you can even play it in a rather passive way. You can actually retreat the dark square bishop and then line up the queen on d6 and do it that way.
Yeah. You could maybe think of rerouting the queen back and across, just to switch sides. The rook could swing across. Some hint of an attack against the white king. But yeah, these ideas, they're kind of fiction at the moment. They're just fantasy, but will they become reality for Erigaisi? If he wants to balance the scores, win this game, he'll have to try and go for that white king. What is Prag doing meanwhile? I don't see any good squares, any productive squares for this bishop. Likewise, this bishop, maybe it can move to this square, but you have to be careful. If your dark squared bishop ever gets exchanged or captured, then white will never fight on that color complex.
I think that's a good move. I mean, it was my vibe to actually put the bishop challenging the other bishop, and then at the right minute drop it back, so it provides some kind of shelter for the white king, and then you can just start increasing some pressure against the black knight. Yeah. I mean, white has to bide his time, and he plays it.
He plays it, yeah.
It does look a bit odd, I have to say. It feels a bit loose.
Yeah. Loose is a good word, because yes, it's defended this bishop, but for example, if black captures it, I mean, this would be very tempting for me. And then just to move the knight out the way, there's a bunch of squares. You can put it on a safe square. You can even retreat it. And dark squares now are a serious weakness for white along this diagonal. But, OK, he doesn't go for this. I was going to say, maybe you could even drop the knight in and start exchanging pieces, because once this knight is captured, and it should be captured, the rook would fall. But this would have just led to exchanges. Erigaisi, remember, is down in the match and wants to win, so he doesn't want to swap pieces unless it really helps him and leaves an imbalance. So he drops his knight back, and he's saying, yes, OK, you can swap these set of pieces, but now this black knight is far more versatile than the white bishop. White's bishop, a lousy piece, and black's knight has a clear path in towards the white king along the dark squares. So Erigaisi offering that trade, it was rejected yet again by Prag. He knows that he has to keep his bishop pair. That's white's only real positive in his position. And here, after the knight stepped back, no bishop trade, he ran to g5. So again, it just feels like Prag is reacting right now. It's Erigaisi who's trying to create. Maybe he'll start bringing his knight to attack the white queen. Maybe he'll just shuffle his rook across to the center. It's unclear. Worst comes to worst, you plant your knight back in the middle, but that might lead to a repetition of the position. I don't think black's in any trouble here, but you might not be worse. Are you better? Do you have the advantage? That's the question. Mm-hmm. Who would you pick here, Jovanka?
Black.
Black now, yeah.
I changed my mind because I'm a fickle creature. And yeah, black's pieces just look very strong. And like you say, white has a big problem on the dark squares. And it's not easy to defend. And there we see Arjun retreat his queen. He's really establishing that dominance over the dark squares. And again, he's going to carry on building. You know, the rook now can move. Maybe the knight can plant itself back on the e5 square. It was a very commanding post after all.
Yep, the knight is coming back. It's just going to be hard for white. For example, even if white moves now, it's just hard to destabilize black's setup. How do you kick this rook away? It takes a long, long time. How do you kick this knight away? Maybe you can't. And slowly but surely, black will make some progress. This rook can swing. And also notice the king positions. There's 3 pawns protecting the black king. There's only 2 protecting the white king. And the 2 that do protect the white king aren't well placed. So yeah, watch out for white facing some tricks later on.
Yeah.
Oof. time-wise as well, having a weaker king is not great for Pragg. He's down 2 minutes on the clock. Okay, he just pushes a pawn. If we go back to the position, he just pushes his a-pawn forward, but that doesn't really change much.
Nope.
It doesn't change anything at all. Maybe it was just designed against black's rook coming to attack the white queen, but it's a passive waiting move. And now I'm expecting Erigaisi to activate his knight or his rook, the only two kind of misplaced pieces. Optimize those ones, and black should be doing well.
Yeah, it's a sleepy move. And the reason I say that is because, after all, we do have a caption competition where we are asking everyone to caption this picture of Pragg asleep, resting his head on Ramesh at the basketball game. And Manuel Bevand says he's got school tomorrow. And Frenchy Run captions this picture by saying, the liquid death was not an energy drink after all.
Oh, that's a very good one.
And then I also quite like M's comment. It says, keep dreaming, son. Keep dreaming. Oh. And if you too want to enter this competition, remember to tweet your answer using the hashtag ChessChamps, and the winner will get this most fabulous T-shirt. It's exclusive to the Champions Chess Tour. Only a few people have this in the world. Simon's T-shirt saying, just resign.
His catchphrase, and great shirt as well. I've got one on under here. And I don't think either side needs to resign this position, but Pragg does look at least slightly more awake than he did in that photo right now. And he has to really wake up and play a bit quicker on the clock. 4 minutes. His dark squared bishop's just been attacked. I've got to say, I'm not a fan of what Erigaisi's just done. He's put a pawn on a dark square, but he's loosened up White's. He's loosened up his light squares. White's light square bishop at least has some dream of getting in the game now, but Erigaisi corrects his last move. He gained a bit of time, but he corrects that by putting his pawns to block the potential of White's light squared bishop. Interesting decision. The black king no longer as safe as it was, but maybe he's got a bit more control. Erigaisi in the center at least. Pros and cons behind that last decision. Pushing pawns is always a very risky maneuver, especially in such a tense middle game.
I don't like it, David.
Don't like it?
I've sat next to you for too long. And I'm thinking, no, you can't make those pawn weaknesses. Because for starters, OK, I was going to suggest that the rook can move across to the open line, but Pragg just improves his dark squared bishop.
Yeah. I mean, I guess on the plus side, the white light squared bishop, unless there's a sacrifice, it's never ever getting in the game now. But as you say, Ivanka, especially the e6 square next to that black bishop, eternally an outpost.
Yeah.
It's a big if, though. It's if Pragg is quick enough, if White's pieces get into the position. He brought his dark squared bishop back, but this piece looks like it's hitting thin air, and Erigaisi's found another way round for the black knight, gaining time, hitting the white queen.
The queen will just swing across, as she does, and Erigaisi jumps in immediately with his knight. I would just take that off in a heartbeat, and as you can see, Pragg agrees. And OK, now, again, I'm suddenly coming around to the idea that black is much better.
Yeah.
And his strategy has paid off. Although I do think Pragg now has to start taking some active choices here. He can't just sit back and wait for black to keep on improving the rooks. I think he has to either challenge this rook in the middle of the board or try and take control of his own file and put his rook on c1.
Yeah, both of those ideas look very necessary, actually. You have to simply do something with these two pieces. They're asleep, just like Pragg was in that photo. And you could do that, as you say, Ivanka. This move, I wasn't looking in this direction originally, but it makes a lot of sense. If you can get into this square, your rook will sit nice and pretty. And likewise, if you move your other rook across, if there's a rook trade, then you might sneak into this square where your rook will sit nice and pretty, another outpost anchored by White's passed pawn. However, if you do go for this one, black will say, OK, let's trade on my terms, and black controls the only open file. Suddenly, it feels like there might be some kind of action on the first rank. Black might be able to sneak in later. For example, the queen could slide across, supporting a future back rank checkmate. And now white's rook would not be free to join the action. So the more I look at it, the more I'm inclined towards your second choice there, Ivanka. Keep one defensive rook and go active with the other one. And going active with this rook feels like the way forward. Pragg instead retreats his bishop. Okay, what is the idea there? Maybe to reroute it to this square, peering down at the black king, maybe just to support a trade of rooks on e1. But that feels like the step in the wrong direction. It cost him a lot of time, 2.5 minutes against 5. Erigaisi, he's looked very, very good in this game so far. It's turning the screw as black. Now a huge threat of jumping into the center and creeping in. Remember, that would end in checkmate if black's queen ever lines up on the same diagonal as its bishop.
Oh, wow, David, I have news for you. Pragg has to trade off dark square bishop, and of course he finds it. Anything else would have been losing.
Wow, already the path has narrowed that much that white is in only move territory. And this is a pawn sacrifice. He had to go for this. We have become accustomed to Pragg finding the best move when there's only one in the position. He's so accurate, he's so precise. This is a pawn sacrifice because the bishops might disappear and Erigaisi here can simply grab a pawn. However, now the bishops have disappeared. White's king is super safe on the dark squares. No more issues there. And remember this pawn. In an endgame, we said it might be a strength. Now the blockader has been removed and only 2 squares away from promotion. So tables might turn. What a move by Pragg. I must admit, this is really classy stuff. It wasn't on my radar. Just giving up a pawn, showing no materialism, just removing black's best piece.
And he saw it so quickly. I think perhaps we would have seen it, but perhaps 5-10 minutes down the line after we'd rejected the rook moves. But Pragg, he took 2 minutes time out, and then he finds the best move. He knows exactly what needs to be done. He's got full board vision. And yeah, I like this decision. After all, black's extra pawn is a double pawn there on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, no extra pawn. I mean, this doubled pawn just balances out white's extra central pawn. So actually, I mean, if there is a trade of bishops, yes, it's an extra pawn, but it's just about this pass pawn, right?
Exactly.
White's runner in the center. And also the question now for Erigaisi, if he doesn't want to allow the blockade to go, I mean, there's a pin on this line, you have to allow the exchange of bishops. You could set up this checkmate threat, queen to h2 sneaking in, but the supporter of that would be removed, and suddenly the replacement of the bishop is the queen, and queens are known as the worst blockaders. They want to be active, they want to be zooming around, capturing pawns, creating threats. They don't want to be sitting just guarding a mere pawn. So suddenly I like white's chances, at least of holding the game. I don't think white's ever really playing for the advantage, but yeah, Pragg looks like he's at least reasserted some control after being outplayed for the last 10, 15 moves.
Wow.
And we will see that trade of bishops. And suddenly black's queen, yeah, not a happy piece at all. Pragg, there we go, the evaluation bar does slide down as well. It's not just that he's such a great attacker, as we've seen throughout the tour, beating Magnus, beating some of the top players in the world, but when he's in trouble, he's extremely tenacious. He never lets his head drop. And I think that's a lesson to all the young players out there, just to all players out there. I think the older I get, the more my head drops when I'm being outplayed. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to save this. I don't believe in my chances. But Pragg always looks for those hidden resources. Retreating that white bishop, moving it across, sacrificing a pawn. It cost him 3 moves, but he got rid of black's best piece. And just really, really classy stuff.
It is definitely classy stuff, and actually ties in very nicely with this question that we've received from Pepe Le Pew. He's actually watching the show from New Zealand. Hello, New Zealand. And he says, could you explain the difference between strategy and tactics?
Yeah, very good question. So normally when we commentate on chess, we do divide up different types of position or different types of move into strategy and tactics. Strategy is essentially long-term stuff. So it could be the bishop pair, a better pawn structure. It's very static things that you see in a position. Tactics are direct variations. It's like forcing moves, checks, captures, threats. I have to play something, the opponent has to react. I play another move, the opponent has to react. Tactics often do involve double attacks. And yeah, they often involve just kind of pushing your opponent down a forced path.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. I've actually wondered that myself.
Yeah.
And I actually have a very good quote from Sun Tzu, who says, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. Very true.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's another quote as well. I can't quite remember who said it, but they said, tacticians know what to do when there's something to do, but strategists, they know what to do when there's nothing to do. So if there's nothing to do in a position, strategists, they just improve their pieces. They look for the long-term advantages. I would class myself in that type of kind of mold. But yeah, tacticians like Prag, or like, I mean, the great world champions, Tal, for example, and modern players like Mamedyarov, when there's something to do, they spot these really aggressive ways to give their position energy, to go for checkmate, to go for the opponent's king.
And are you either or can you be both?
If you're Magnus Carlsen, you're both. Otherwise, you're usually in one or the other camp. It often reflects your personality as well. Tacticians tend to be, you know, players who want to live in the moment and go for fun, go for spectacular. I'm more of a kind of results-based, all about the numbers, all about the stats. I'd rather avoid defeat than risk. But yeah, I mean, you can be both, of course. Nowadays, in modern chess, the top players, they're very universal. So Prag, I would say as well, he's good at both.
Yeah. And I can see that Arjun is actually improving his position, using strategy to his benefit. But I have a look at other results and other games, and I can see that Magnus Carlsen, he is winning against Jan-Krzysztof Duda.
Look at that.
But I have to say, I mean, it's not necessarily that clear. Magnus is facing an attack.
Oh, okay.
So anything can happen.
And we know Duda is resourceful, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Duda, okay, he doesn't have a positive expression on his face, however, but he's very good usually at turning things around, so he's got to believe, will the tilt continue? That's the problem with tilt. Sometimes you can just play good moves, you play the position that's put in front of you, but as soon as things start to turn, your head goes. And I'm wondering whether we switch over, because this game looks like it might be headed towards a draw. We do see the pawns disappearing, the queens have left the board.
You get my vote of approval.
Yeah, let's see if we can make that happen, perhaps, because that Magnus game, extremely exciting. This game will fizzle towards a draw because white's c-pawn will disappear, black's b-pawn will disappear. It's just going to be 3 pawns each, and no way to disbalance this one. So Prag did find a way towards safety. And I wonder, Kaya, can we make that happen? Can we switch over?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll see whether the magic can happen.
Yeah.
And
I mean, let's do it.
Yeah, let's try.
Okay, can we click our fingers?
This game is headed towards a draw. All Rook-End games are drawn, as they say. We'll see now that white c-pawn be captured, and white will regain the material.
Yeah.
And that means Prag will stay in the lead. He won the first game. If he wins game 3, he's going to win the match. Arjun Erigaisi, he needs to win either game 3 and or 4 to either win the match or take it to tie breaks. But we're going to jump to Duda Carlsen, where Magnus Carlsen can take the lead against his big rival this season. The first game was a draw. And remember what Ty said as well. If Magnus wins this game and the next one, he's going to finish the season above 2,900 on the tour ratings. That must be a motivation as well. What's happening on this board?
Wow, and we've jumped in, and there's just been a tactical melee. We just missed a really nice tactic by Magnus, which we will show in a second, but he got the queens off the board. He was facing a serious attack. Black's king was in trouble, but when you're facing an attack, swap queens, and he achieved this. And now, let's do a quick count. It's rook for bishop, but more importantly, black has 4 extra pawns. So black is seriously ahead. And all black needs to do is keep those pawns intact. Rooks are very good at chasing down pawns. The black bishop isn't as agile, but it must be winning Jovanka. Those pawns must be too strong.
It has to be. I mean, 100%. That's very confident talking by me, but I mean, those pawns must be superior. I probably would say that it's not necessarily the e-pawn or the g-pawn that's going to win the game, but instead it will be the c-pawn and those pawns there on the left.
So what would be the winning idea? You don't want to push all your pawns forward too far, because white's rook will happily just hoover them off the board. But I guess you need the black king. Black's king might start racing towards the center. It's far away right now. Both kings are. But it looks like black's king has a clearer path into the center than the white one does, and Duda's still shaking his head. Maybe just while Duda is kind of at least trying to save this position. We can show what just happened before we jumped in. It was just 1 or 2 moves before we joined the action where Magnus clinched the decisive advantage. It was here. Black's king is under heavy fire from White's 2 rooks and from the White queen. It looks really scary, but Magnus offered this queen exchange, just stepped across, and when Duda put his queen on the edge of the board, Magnus sacrificed his queen temporarily for the White rook and created this pin, winning the material back, winning the White queen for Black's rook. And suddenly we do catch up with the game. Let's see what the players have chosen. Magnus has just eliminated this remaining White pawn on a2 at the cost of his own pawn on a7, and now retreating. The question is, can he keep his 4 pawns alive? The bishop alone is not a great defender. He might need his king, Magnus. It does look like a big ask for White's rook to go and grab all of these 4 pawns, so Duda shuffles his king across. But now, maybe the march will begin. Black's bishop will defend 1 pawn, and it's these 2 that you mentioned, Jovanka. These 2 are going to run.
Yeah, and they're going to be protected as well. And then it's just a matter of time, you know, slowly but surely wins the race like the tortoise. Then it's just about introducing the king into the game, and the rook can't keep an eye on all the pawns. And someone has to start doing the defensive work. And there you see Duda move his rook. He's threatening to move his rook 1 square up the board. And that's why Magnus just advances his c-pawn.
Yeah, he's advancing his c-pawn. So now if this move does happen, Jovanka, he's happily going to start running.
Yeah.
And he's going to abandon this pawn, of course, because it's these 2 that are going to win the day. So Duda goes after the Black b-pawn, but he's going to find his pieces stuck, surely, after Black pushes. I'm not sure which pawn you should push, but for example, if you push the c-pawn, surely there's no time to come and stop these Black pawns. Suddenly, Black can just put his pawns on these squares. This pawn completely paralyzes the White rook. This pawn will keep the White king honest, and it might eventually be the g-pawn that wins the day. The Black king now has all the time in the world to start moving across, to start kicking the White rook away.
And, well, you've predicted the future correctly. It's exactly what's happening. And the rook has gotten behind the pass pawn, and we're expecting the e-pawn to push. Magnus doesn't even flinch. He just knows exactly what he has to do.
Yeah, this is the most beautiful bishop you'll ever see, acting as a guardian of those 2 pass pawns. And White is absolutely paralyzed. This is one case where a rook is far worse than a minor piece, than a bishop. And too many pawns. Looks like another endgame masterclass from Magnus.
King is going to start approaching now.
Yeah, Black's king is coming, and that will spell the end. That's the missing ingredient. And, of course, 3 pawns. It's going to be hard. It's going to be an uphill struggle for Duda to deal with all of these runners. You can deal with 2 of them with your 2 pieces, but you can't deal with all 3. Yeah, I mean, Magnus, we thought he might take his foot off the pedal, but already with his opening choices today, he's asked early questions of Duda, and look at this. He's not even using the Black king. He doesn't need to. This Black g-pawn is going to come and kick away the White king. One of these 3 pawns is going to promote. I think it's inevitable now.
Could all of them promote, or maybe 2 of them, if Duda allowed him to go on for long enough?
This is greedy, Kaya. 1 is enough.
1 queen's enough for checkmate, but why stop at 1? And here we go. The problem is White's king cannot stop 2 pawns on its own. White's rook is stuck behind the c-pawn. I think we'll see Duda resign less than 10 seconds as well. OK, he gives up his rook for 1 pawn. But now the Black bishop can just retreat. As long as you keep your remaining pawn as a future queen, you win the game. And Magnus with a nice killer touch, giving up his bishop. If king takes bishop, the Black pawn has a free run through. And there's no way to win that Black pawn, so Duda does resign.
We have a win for Magnus Carlsen on this final day. He takes the lead in the match against his big rival this season, Jan Christoph Duda. If he wins game 3, he's gonna also win the match on the final day. On fire, Magnus Carlsen.
Magnus, we felt you were in total control from the start in this game. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think e5 was probably overzealous. I think he had decent compensation, but it wasn't so easy to prove. And then, yeah, later, it's very important that I have this plan to bring the bishop to a6. I feel like most of the time I'm in time there, and after I sacked the exchange, I felt like I should be much better. Obviously, there's always counterplay, but it didn't seem like it was enough.
Again, this really interesting knight 8-6 in the opening. He went into a long think. Do you think it had an unsettling effect on Duda?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was making a choice there. Either he has to play something quiet, after which, you know, I have a blockade on e5, and then we just maneuver for a long time, or he probably felt that he can try and do something more decisive, but maybe it wasn't so easy.
But very much according to his style to go for e5 and dynamics. Are you surprised with the kind of clock difference that's going on in the last 2 games?
Yeah, I'm just taking it a little bit easy when it comes to that. Just trying to play more by intuition than before, and certainly when the complications happened right at the end with Queen e6 and those simplifications, like having 8 extra minutes helped a lot.
It's working so far. Good luck for the next one.
And today's Lisaveta learning point is about something that Magnus mentioned in his interview. Here, Magnus, as black, is under some serious pressure. It looks like white's heavy pieces are going all out for the black king. However, staying ahead on the clock in rapid chess is vital. Magnus mentioned he had 8 minutes. Duda only had a few seconds left, and using all his time on the clock, Magnus found a nice way to defend. He simply shuffled his queen across, and this actually forces the queens off the board. When your king is weak, get those queens off. And here, white can't go for the queen trade immediately. He tried Duda to keep his queen on the board. Using this pin, it looks like the white queen cannot be captured, but a nice temporary sacrifice from Magnus. He captured the white rook with a check, forcing white's queen back, and now this nasty pin won the game. The white queen cannot save itself. It has to give itself up for the black rook. And as we saw later on, Magnus, because he had such a big time advantage on the clock, was able to push these 3 pawns to victory. Really nice tactics in order to ensure a winning endgame.
Magnus Carlsen can decide the match in game 3. If he wins it with the white pieces, he will win the match against Jan-Christoph Duda, who is down by 1 point. But Jan-Christoph Duda has played some amazing chess this season, and in the Oslo Esports Cup, he eventually became the surprise winner.
And there it is. Duda wins his match.
Wow. And will he also now win the tournament? A handshake between Duda and Erik Hansen. Duda takes all 3 points in this match. That means right now he is in the lead in the Oslo Esports Cup.
Is this blindness? Or the white rook can just step forward 1 square and capture a black pawn?
He has.
And Magnus, look at him.
Oh my words.
Just hallucination. He forgot this pawn was up for grabs.
He resigns. He offers a handshake to the great Shahriar Mamadiyaro, who played just some fantastic chess today to win the match against Magnus Carlsen and shake everything up. Obviously, Liam must be nervous. He knows that if he wins this, he wins the tournament. We're heading towards a draw in this game. That means tie breaks. It also means Duda wins the tournament.
A draw is inevitable now after the bishop disappears. Everything's disappearing. It's king versus king.
What's Duda going to do? Double fist pump?
It's
One fist pump.
Jan-Christoph Duda wins the Oslo Esports Cup.
It's very nice to win the tournament. Actually, I didn't believe I have a real chance before now. So yeah, I'm just happy, to play good chess here.
That was a nice moment for Jan-Christoph Duda, and we mostly had really nice moments during this season of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. But during the first tournament this season, Russia invaded Ukraine, and for the second tournament this season, we decided to team up with UNICEF. So together with UNICEF, the players, and our partners, the second tournament this season was called the Charity Cup and was a fundraiser for the children affected by the war in Ukraine.
So we are now calling on the chess community, our partners, and all of you, our viewers, to come together and help those in desperate need by donating to UNICEF, who is providing life-saving support to the people in and around Ukraine. This is so far the status in our fundraiser. After only a few hours, I'm so impressed. More than $13,000. The auction also for David's chess tie is about to end. 1 minute and 14 seconds left. The current bid, I think, is it $700?
It's $700.
Wow.
It's a golden tie.
The golden tie.
I don't know what to say, everyone. Whoever wins it, I hope it brings you a lot of luck on the chessboard, and thank you as well for your generosity for Ukraine.
Yesterday, together with all of you, we were able to raise more than $20,000. We have now raised our goal to $75,000. I am being told that you're actually donating all of your prize money in this tournament to UNICEF. Is that correct?
Yeah, I figured it'd be a good time to contribute in my own way. I would have hoped to score more points or make it to the knockout, because it was 100% of whatever I scored. So I think in the end, $4,000. I think I won, so not bad. I would have liked to have done better for the charity, but I think it's a good initiative.
So far, we've been able to donate more than $20,000 thanks to our Play Magnus charity challenge. So we invite guests in the studio to play Magnus at 10 years old, and we donate money to UNICEF per move that they're able to make. And today, David, you're going to get your chance for revenge against Magnus, 10 years old.
I got this. I'm getting
Quick! Oh, quick!
Yes! 69.
69 moves. That means FTX will so kindly donate $6,900 to UNICEF in our fundraiser for Ukraine.
Okay, who wants to do that?
Trading things off. Okay, he's got a great position still, but only 5 seconds for Christian. Capture that pawn in the center. Go on, move. 2 seconds, 1 second.
And the clock's running out.
Out of time.
Oh, wow. 25 moves. You're also going to let us auction out a pair of your Puma football shoes. So thank you so much for that as well. And you're going to sign them as well, right?
Yes, I'll make sure to sign them, and I'll be, giving those. So I'm really excited about that.
And now it says closed auction, meaning the signed chessboard by Magnus Carlsen finally went for $8,600. All money going to UNICEF. I mean, that must be the most expensive chessboard ever. It's been heartwarming to see how the chess community has come together for the people of Ukraine. We ended up on $158,000. That is incredible. We started out with a goal of $20,000, and here we are. Thanks to all of you at home. A big, big thank you. Fantastic. That is, you said it, David, one of your favorite tournaments this season.
Yeah, it was just so touching that the whole chess community came together. Our viewers, thank you so much for being so generous, all of you. And we had some cool events going on every day. Yeah, the whole chess world uniting. That was, for me, that was one of the highlights of the year.
I agree. Really came together. Again, thank you to everyone who did join in that fundraiser. It's getting close now to Game 3s here in the Tour Finals final day. We've had a vote going the whole tournament for best game of the 2022 season. The voting is now closed, and we have the results. The winner, the best game of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022 is Magnus Carlsen against Ali Reza Firouzja from the Crypto Cup. It received almost 20% of your votes. This game was a win for Magnus Carlsen. Let's take a look at it.
Game 1. Carlsen wins a wild and wonderful tactical battle.
Seconds left on the clock.
It's getting complicated.
It's getting really complicated. This
coming in.
This is messy.
Checkmate will end the game. That knight drops. It's 2 rooks and a bishop against the queen. It's too many material, too many pieces. White's king will move next. The white queen will jump back and defend. And there we go. Magnus takes the first blitz game.
This was an important win for Magnus in that Blitz game. You seemed a little surprised that this was the winner.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be Mamajara's amazing sacrifices against Anish Giri, where he gave up all of his pieces pretty much to win the game. But all of those games were worthy candidates,
Definitely.
and the people have spoken. Carlsen wins yet another prize.
Yeah, he's winning them all, Magnus Carlsen. What a season it's been for him. And he's now in the lead against Duda on this final day. 2 draws between Wesley So and Anish Giri. That will definitely go to game 4. Arjun Erigaisi, he needs to win at least one of the 2 next games to take it to tiebreaks against Prag. Prag, if he wins game 3, he will win the match. Liam Le, 2 wins against Mamdyarov today. With a draw in game 3, he's gonna win the match. Magnus Carlsen with a great win in game 2 against Duda means Duda needs to make a comeback. Magnus with a win in game 3 will finish off the season with a match win. Inside Shack 15, we will follow this game. Magnus Carlsen will have the white pieces. And what do you expect, Ivanka? He knows this could be his final game of the season.
Yeah, he's going to push hard.
Yeah.
You know, he smells blood. He senses that Duda is perhaps tilting, he's upset with himself. So what other than just to put the pressure on early on and surprise Duda and then just enjoy the game. And the great thing about Magnus, you know, he can just relax and enjoy the situation. He has, he's won everything, literally everything. So he might as well just play with abandon. It doesn't really matter what happens.
Yeah, and that interview that we had with Magnus earlier is very telling. He's adopting the Aronian strategy, just trusting your instincts, playing quickly, confidently, and when the critical moments happen later, having those extra minutes on the clock is so important. Meanwhile, this game has started as a Sicilian defense, an open Sicilian, where we see an exchange of pawns on d4 very early. That means some open lines, potentially some big attacks early in the game. At least the climax of this one will be much earlier. No more endgame grinds. The open Sicilian is very ambitious. Magnus not just knuckling down, playing for the draw. He's playing his principled favourite openings here.
If Magnus wins this game, he's not only going to win the match and finish off in style, he will finish the season, as Ty mentioned, above 2,900. And not only that, he's going to finish off on a peak tour rating. That is a nice way. Yeah, that is a nice way.
It's like a clean sweep. You know, he wins the tour one tournament early. He wins the tour final, a tournament early. You know, he's won 5 of the tour events.
Yeah.
Now he's like over...
Won the best game.
2,900.
Yeah.
I mean, someone has to stop him.
If there was any doubt, he is still the best player in the world. I think he is proving it in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour in a great mood with his music on.
I was going to say, and he's done it all listening to music.
Probably some
away.
90s classics.
Again, you know, when you're kind of training chess and you're going through all the motions, I mean, you're kind of told, you know, you should just focus 100% on chess. You should just be in deep concentration. And Magnus is like, nope, don't need to be in the zone. I can just enjoy the music and play chess. I'm also fantastic at multitasking. I mean, is there anything that Magnus can't do?
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, it's depressing for all of his rivals out there. I mean, Magnus, he's just at his peak. How can you even fight against this level that he's displayed the whole week? It's just amazing to watch, and we're so lucky here to have front row seats to one of the greatest players of all time, showing his best chess. And it did start as an open Sicilian, and now the position has actually transposed to an English opening. We did see a bunch of exchanges, knights disappearing. Yeah, this is a definite advert for just being happy, being relaxed when you play, because that's often when the best ideas come to your mind. If you're too focused, too stressed, then often you have tunnel vision. You get too kind of attached to certain moves when you have to have a broad picture of the whole board. It's also the modern generation. We see streamers nowadays listening to music, chatting to their fans, and playing. Yeah, all the top players, they're multitaskers.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that, because whenever I've streamed, it's like blunder central, and it becomes a bit embarrassing. And anyhow, the players are actually still following a game that was played between Magnus Carlsen and Vishy Anand in 2018, and that game ended in a draw.
Yeah, I think I remember that game. That one, Magnus didn't achieve much from the opening, but he was never in that much danger either, if I remember. So that's maybe perfect for the match situation. Magnus doesn't necessarily want to take too much risk. He wants to get a playable position with some stability. There's been an exchange of pieces, so White's pawn structure long-term is very damaged, those two doubled c-pawns. However, you have the bishop pair, so often at the right moment, one of the c-pawns might step forward, the pawn on c4. You might even give a pawn back just in order to activate those mighty bishops. Seems to be a theme of the kind of tournament so far, Jovanka. Just one side obtaining the bishop pair, trying to keep it for later, and it's always a battle. Will that be a factor? Will that be effective? Sometimes it is, sometimes not.
Yeah. There needs to be a course called the Mighty Bishops. Like I don't know why I was thinking that. The Mighty Ducks is actually what I was running through my mind. That was a great film, by the way. And no one tell me otherwise.
Yeah. Nostalgia. And meanwhile, you mentioned that game. Magnus has got pedigree in this position. He played it against Vishy Anand, one of the greats of world chess. How did that game continue, Jovanka?
So it kind of continued exactly the same way that you said. Actually, White sacrificing the c-pawn. Black captured. And after White played f3, supporting the center, he just simply developed his pieces and did what Magnus likes to do. You know, he actually developed his dark square bishop, pushed the a-pawn, moved his rook over to an open line, and got very pleasant position.
Yeah, and I think this is essential that Magnus pushed this pawn now. If you had delayed, for example, a more sleepy player, a slower type of strategy player might have just pushed a pawn first. But suddenly, Black's queen would jump out, hitting these weaknesses. Notice how it's not possible to sacrifice your front pawn anymore. Also, the Black knight could come round to blockade these two eternal weaknesses. By giving this pawn up immediately, Magnus is saying, yes, I'm going to be a pawn down, but in this position, look at your pawns. Are these two pawns really better than just one? The front pawn, especially on c5, is going to be extremely weak once the white bishop lines up against it. The queen can also line up against it on the diagonal. It's going to be hard to hold this pawn long term. So it's a very much long-term sacrifice, but also it's to free up the bishops. White's bishop actually has a very nice square now to blockade in front of those pawns.
Yeah.
So it's a liberation sacrifice. It's freeing your pieces, but you're also saddling your opponent with those long-term weaknesses.
And you've actually highlighted the best move for White on the board.
Oh, wow. Pure accident, I tell you, Jovanka. He doesn't play it. He pushes his pawn to f3. Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember studying this as White one time when I was tempted to play this opening via the English move order rather than the Sicilian. But I do remember the bishop often came to this square and White's pawn steps forward. Black tries to at least occupy or take some control over the square in front of his pawns. Now Black's bishop is lined up also against a long-term weakness, and Magnus just continues to develop. It feels like it should be balanced. Black is temporarily a pawn up, and he should be able to give back this pawn at the right moment to trade off some pieces or to just at least cost White a bit of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, for now, the pressure is definitely on Duda.
And the game is literally following Magnus Carlsen's earlier games. Mm-hmm. So Magnus will be in his element. You know, he's played this position before. He's quite experienced. I'm sure he has a small improvement up his sleeve somewhere. Mm. And do you think Duda knows what he's doing?
Quite possibly Duda has studied this or something similar before, but it's unlikely he's looked at it recently, and he will not have predicted this. That's another kind of reason why Magnus is so successful with experimenting with openings, because he's always got an idea. He always has some kind of experience in these openings, Magnus, but he's unpredictable because he plays everything. His opponents can never predict what he's going to do on the morning of the game. They have to look at 4 or 5 different openings, and therefore they kind of split their time, they divide their time, and no matter what opening he chooses, the opponent's knowledge is always superficial. They have to study 4 things. Yes, they might have predicted 1, but they won't have gone as deep as he has.
Sure.
So,
Magnus, is he singing?
He's been doing that today. Listening to his music.
Sing when you're winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, OK, there has been a development, actually, because Duda's knight retreat was different to what was played in the game. And Vishy actually didn't touch that knight at all, instead preferred to move the queen. So now Magnus will be feeling very comfortable.
Okay.
Yep, Magnus can choose. He can occupy this line, this open line with his rook. He can start gaining space. This is a very Magnus move, pushing this pawn forward, trying to push it all the way up just for the endgame when it's ready to start being a nuisance, ready to start trying to promote. Another idea, for example, could be to just sidestep with the white queen. Okay,
here it comes.
There we go. It's just classic Magnus. He pushes the pawn, gains some space. And yeah, pressure all on black. Black's knight misplaced, black's queen passive, and these are ugly pawns.
And he cannot lose this game. Jan Christoph Duda. Magnus will win the match. He was in a great mood when he arrived the arena today. Tanya, you asked Magnus about Wesley So playing Sinister Magnus before each game. I wanted to ask you, what is the story with Wesley So and Sinister Magnus?
It's also mysterious, Kaya. So every day, Wesley comes on and he's been mentioning that he plays these warm-up games online before the matches start. And over the last couple of days, he's been playing a certain player going by the handle Sinister Magnus. Wesley says he's around 3,000 rated, and he's been outplaying Wesley. And now, that's not something that you usually do. You don't outplay Wesley in blitz games and in bullet games, but that's what's been happening. Wesley was wondering if that is Magnus's secret account or what's going on there, because he has no idea who Sinister Magnus is. But he did say that, well, getting those losses has been helping him play his games here and matches here and winning them, because he kind of gets done with all the games that he has to lose. We asked Magnus today, is he Sinister Magnus? Magnus declined it. But we also learned, well, Magnus might not have been playing Wesley, but he's been up till 3 a.m. playing against Daniel Naroditsky, some more chess. Clearly, the world champion can't have enough of the game. He's playing here. He's up all night till 3 a.m. playing against some of the best players in the world. It's still a mystery. Who is Sinister Magnus?
Oh, wow, that is some super interesting insight, Tanya. Sinister Magnus. I think we need to start an investigation on Twitter. Who is Sinister Magnus?
Yeah, you can tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps. I mean, I don't think it would be, like, it couldn't be Magnus. I mean, it's kind of obvious.
I remember his reaction, though. So first he said, huh? What? And then he said, oh, now I understand, sort of.
Yeah, is he bluffing Magnus? Is he double bluffing? Is he trying to keep his identity a secret? He normally goes anonymous if he can when he plays.
And if you have a rating online on Lichess of 3,000,
it means you're one of the elite, one of the best blitz players out there. I think this is on chess.com, and Magnus has a rating of 3,200 on his named account, so he's even better than Sinister Magnus, but 3,000 is very strong. I struggle to break that boundary, that threshold. It must be a very, very strong player that Wesley's sparring against.
Who is Sinister Magnus? Oh, I'm so curious right now. So what is it you, David?
I wish. I wish I could beat Wesley So, but it's not me, unfortunately. Whoever it is does have a picture of Magnus in the profile, does have Magnus's name and a Norwegian flag next to it. So I'm just looking at it right now. Yeah, the mystery continues.
Yeah, it's not Magnus.
You don't think so?
No, it's a spoof account.
Yeah, often when Magnus does play online, it's either his kind of official account or it's very random anonymous names that nobody can figure out until he reveals it himself on a stream, for example.
Could it be the Norwegian juniors?
Maybe.
Are they strong enough to take down Wesley So consistently? I'm not so sure. There can only be a handful of players in the world, surely. Maybe it's Nakamura just trolling.
And Sinister, what sort of does that mean? Is it like a name, or is it?
Yeah, sinister means like creepy, scary.
Yeah.
Creepy Magnus.
Yeah. Creepy Magnus. Oh, yeah, it's always fascinating. There's so many accounts that I play when I play online on any website. You know, I just want to know who it is. Sometimes you can get a gist from their moves, you can kind of guess just from their style of play, but if they're really strong and they're just outplaying you every game, you just want to know. You don't want to lose to just some faceless, nameless person. But for Wesley, it's also interesting, it's instructive that Magnus has been playing a lot online during this tournament just to stay sharp, stay fresh. Wesley's doing the same, and that's brought them success. It's a bit like, for example, in tennis, you see even before the match, they're warming up with their team, they're warming up against their opponent. That's what the top chess players in the world are doing now these days. No more just sitting in your room, just kind of staying calm, doing nothing. You have to play chess in order to be fresh.
This is a very very strange. Who is Sinister Magnus? A 3,000 rated player online on Lee Chess. Named himself after Magnus Carlsen, beating Wesley So.
Yeah, I'm looking at the results. Very impressive results as well. Just beating some very strong blitz specialists. So it must be... I don't know who it is. Viewers, we need your help.
Yeah.
Investigate. Sherlock Holmes, if you're out there, let us know.
And Tanya also saying Magnus is up all night playing blitz against Naroditsky.
Yeah. And Naroditsky, he's played on the tour. He's great. I mean, not just a world-class commentator, but just so fast on the mouse.
Yeah.
I can't compete with his speed, Naroditsky. So quick at blitz and bullet.
Yeah, I can tell you how I lost 2 hours of my life today. I was on that new Magnus Chess Academy app, playing Ace in the Sleeve. Kaya, what have you introduced me as to? It's so addictive.
I know.
And the music comes on, and you feel like James Bond solving all these checkmating
the sound effects in this
puzzles. Yeah, and I was like, before I knew it, 2 hours had gone. I had matched Anish's results, but I hadn't beaten Christopher Yu, which I was kind of annoyed about.
72, right?
Yeah. Wow, 69.
69 is Anish. Oh, well, that's still super good. Remember, everyone, the new Magnus Chess Academy app is released. It is world #1, Magnus Carlsen's very own official app. And it's available for download now, both for Apple devices and Android. And in the app, there's just a bunch of really, really cool games. They're fun, but they're also going to help you improve your chess. And Magnus even said he's getting hooked on it as well. And we all are.
Yeah. You practice chess as the top players do. You learn pattern recognition, all that, but also, yeah, gaming. It's fun.
Yeah. And much more sensible to spend your time on than, for example, Candy Crush, which is just pointless. You don't learn anything. You don't improve your brain capacity. But using this app, you will get smarter.
Definitely. Yeah. And you will also enjoy yourself. And it does look like Magnus is thinking hard, and whilst he's contemplating perhaps snoozing, well, we do have a caption this competition where we're asking the viewers at home to caption this picture of young Prag falling asleep at the basketball game. And Sterling says Prag came to the Warriors game to get a taste of the American dream. I love these puns. Yeah. You will always win me over with those kind of jokes. And 1 2 3 4 triple E 1 2 3 4. That was a nice handle. Says the road to the world champion is long and tiring.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is a very good one. And if you two have a caption for this picture, remember to tweet us using the hashtag ChessJams. And one winner will win this highly exclusive Simon Williams Just Resign. Look at that. I mean, you're surely going to intimidate all your opponents wearing this T-shirt. I want one as well.
I know. Right now, there's only 3 in the world. It's David wearing one. It's this one. And, of course, we're going to send one to Simon as well. Oh, wait, we can print one for you as well.
Can we snag one as well? Yeah, okay, because I can't wait to wear it at my next chess tournament.
I know.
Just resign.
Just resign.
Just burst it open.
So powerful.
Exactly. And meanwhile, we do see a move from Magnus. He marches forward with the queen to take control of the D-line.
Yeah, however, the evaluation bar shows a big reaction to this move. It really doesn't like White's position. To me, it looks like White should be fine. Yes, you're a pawn down, but everything else is harmonious. Everything else is protected. Black's pawns, remember, aren't ideally placed, but it might be due to the combination of the pieces. Queen and knight often work better as a team than queen and bishop, and Black has full control. Duda is even feeling confident enough to push his h-pawn down the board. He's going to try to go for the white king later. It's still going to take a while, but Black's queen and knight will be able to help out. First, he wants to create some holes. He wants to just ruin the white pawn structure on that flank, so that h-pawn's going as far down the board as possible. Also, the black king is given some breathing space. And Jovanka, are you surprised to see the evaluation bar so far in Black's favour?
It is surprising, but when I look at it deeply, I'm not that surprised, actually. Even that sounds like a big contradiction. But, I mean, if you take a look at Black's pieces, they're all fantastically placed. You know, the rook is primed to jump to the second row. The black queen can also step in. The knight can spring forward. Yeah, you know, you have weak pawns on the left side of the board, but they're no biggie. It's more to do with piece activity. And Magnus offering a trade of queens. And whoa, the valuation bar has really shot up.
Yeah, it looks like Duda might even have a winning advantage. Maybe he just has to take the queens off and play the endgame. That's not easy psychologically to do against Magnus. But if you do take the queens off, then suddenly look at White's pieces. They're not well placed. Yes, you're going after one pawn, but after, for example, a check and another check, White's king is driven back, still on the first rank. And now Black has a choice. Do you go for this pawn? Looks very juicy, very tempting, impossible for White to defend. You could even go for this pawn. And either way, you will emerge one pawn up. He does take the queens off the board, Duda, and I think he's going to go for this variation. I'm not sure which pawn I would go for, to be honest, but maybe this one. And here, I think Duda just has a clear pawn advantage. He goes for the other pawn instead, but essentially, Black's rook is going to move across, and Black is going to start pushing this A pawn down the board. Okay, Magnus, he's going to try and hold this endgame. He is the endgame maestro, remember. So we do see Black has grabbed a pawn, but maybe it wasn't the correct one because White is going to regain this guy on A5. This pawn is now dropping no matter what. Maybe Duda, with over 10 minutes on the clock, rushed that decision. I think he should have gone for the other pawn because this is the more dangerous runner. It's the outside pass pawn. It's harder to stop. If Black just has this pawn as his extra material, this one is easier to stop running down the board.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the kind of decision that you kind of appreciate the advantage and the disadvantages of in hindsight.
Yeah, in hindsight, Duda maybe had a bigger advantage. He still should be doing well. I'm expecting him to move his rook across, and after a capture of a pawn, he'll take back. And the question is whether he can convert. Black does have an extra pawn, remember, but he's got a weakness here, a weakness there. White's bishop is quite good.
Yeah, and how is a potential? Actually, can I defend the pawn first of all?
Actually, maybe not in this exact position. I don't see a way to defend it because, for example, if you step your pawn forward to defend this guy, then you lose your knight. If you move your knight into the center to block this bishop, then White can happily just take a pawn and restore the balance. If White wins all the queenside pawns and it's just on the king side, then it will be a draw. So Duda may be facing a dilemma. How does he maintain his advantage? Could it be, for example, stepping back with the rook and then now doing something fancy with the knight, jumping into this square or this square? This pawn, this white A pawn, is not running away anytime soon, so you can take it at leisure. But Duda's looking down, he's looking away. That's normally his calculating face. He's trying to work out whether he can stay a pawn up in this endgame. Computer says yes, but he needs to prove it. What do you think, Jovanka? Serious winning chances, or more likely that Magnus can hold?
Difficult question. I want to say serious winning chances, but then the analysis that we just showed on the board kind of demonstrated otherwise. So,
I mean, maybe you could be clever. For example, in this variation we showed, after bishop takes pawn, rook takes pawn. Oh, sorry, maybe I should go the other way. I was going to do something clever, but I have to be accurate. The rook could go behind, and here Duda maybe could give a check first and only then drop back, because now when White's bishop retreats, Black can give a nasty check along this line, and when the king moves, the knight could come in and start going for pawns along the second rank. He's done something similar, Duda. He's gone immediately for the second rank, but the evaluation bar doesn't like what he's done. He hasn't gone after White's A pawn. Will he regret that? Will that pawn promote? This pawn could be dangerous later if White can advance it. First, he's gone for the G pawn instead. Interesting, but it feels...
He's losing control.
Yeah, it feels rushed. He's got 8.5 minutes, and this pawn can simply step forward, for example. That would be one option. Magnus could even ignore that, just maybe move his bishop out the way, start pushing pawns himself.
That's the move that I would be tempted. I mean, I'm not a very patient person, so I would be thinking, OK, fine, I can keep the A pawn alive, move the bishop out of the way to B6, and then get compensation that way. After all, the G pawns feel slightly irrelevant, but then again, this requires calculation because we mustn't forget that Black will also have a passed H pawn. So,
for example, this pawn could start running and we could see a race. Who is quicker? And when it comes to any pawn race, you have to pause, you have to spend some time calculating. For the first time in the match today, actually, Magnus is below on the clock, spending a lot of time. I'm expecting either, as you mentioned, Jovanka, moving up this bishop, clearing a path for the white a-pawn, or you step forward to kick the black knight. But the question there would be whether you actually help kick black's knight to a better square. Maybe the knight sitting in the center would actually help the black pawn advance. Who knows? It's up to Magnus. He is seriously under pressure. He's holding this potentially with best play, but he needs to be accurate. And okay, he doesn't go for any of those options. He moves the king across instead. So this one is similar. I guess he's giving up the g-pawn, and next move he'll swing back with his bishop.
Bar jumps up again for Duda.
Yeah. I expect the bar to swing quite a bit because this is one of those endgames. It's going to end up in a pawn race no matter what, similar to what we showed. It might not be exactly what we showed, but along those lines. And for humans, I think that's where we see the biggest difference between humans and computers. Computers calculate so well, so accurately, they'll never ever blunder in a race. But humans can count incorrectly. They can maybe assume that they're quicker, but the opponent might have a small, clever move to win that race. And yeah, we see Magnus not quite at his best in this game, at least.
I see a bunch of you tweeting about Sinister Magnus.
I was going to say,
we're
Kaya.
so curious about who it is. And Tanya, actually, she got an interview with Wesley. So after game 2 against Anish Giri, they are now playing game 3. They are tied. But I know now that Wesley mentioned Sinister Magnus. So let's take a look at what Wesley said before this game 3.
Wesley, 2 draws in this match so far. Seemed like a pretty even fight. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, kind of expected it. Anish is been a top player since he was a kid. Pretty much known each other for a long time. He's also one of the best, if not the best, prepared player in the opening. He really knows his stuff. He plays a lot of openings, and he's analyzed it deeply. He knows the structures very well. He knows the plans. Again, I'm not sure why he lost so many games in this tournament. I would never have expected that in a million years, but it's going to be a very tough match as expected.
Yes, well, you got 2 best players fighting each other. That's what we want. We do have an update for you, Wesley, that we asked Magnus if he was the secret opponent as Sinister Magnus that you were having your warm-up games against. He declined it.
Yeah, I mean, wonder who else could it be, because I played him today. He beat me 5-0. Played him yesterday. He beat me by 3 points. So I think the total score is 10.5 for that, whoever that is, and I have 2.5 now, and that can be Hikaru. So I can't really think of too many people in the world who can beat me in Blitz. 10.5, 2.5. So unless that guy is using a machine or whatever, I mean, that couldn't be just some random IM, right? But in any case, I was actually watching the real Magnus play last night, unless someone borrowed this account. But that's gotta be him. But I was watching him last night. He was playing some games against Daniel Naroditsky. So I watched a few games. But I think they played 72 games. And I think they played until 3 in the morning. So I also was warming up in the evening and night. But I mean, Magnus playing till 3 in the morning is insane.
Absolutely. Well, the warm-up games have been working out for you. Before you solve the mystery of who it is, you've still got 2 more games to go.
Yeah,
all the best.
After later. Thank you.
Oh, that's so interesting, but it's still a mystery. Who is Sinister Magnus?
Yeah, we've had some suggestions on Twitter. Some people saying, oh, maybe it's Anish. Some people saying Hikaru. Some people saying, oh, there's something fishy about this account as it's only 4 days old. We've had our detectives out there. Thank you. Keep on investigating. Some even joking that it could be Hans Niemann. So anyway, we'll probably get to the bottom of who is Sinister Magnus.
So only 4 days old. That's quite impressive then to get to a rating of 3,000 in 4 days.
That's a serious rating climb. Normally, even if you're a very strong player, it will take a lot of games. But this account has played less than 100 games, but winning nearly all of them. So who beats Wesley? 10.5, 2.5.
I have one final suggestion.
Ooh.
This is mine personal. Maybe it's Magnus, age 10.
Ooh, that's true.
It did do a very convincing run of quite a few players. It caught David, it caught me, it caught... No, it didn't get Simon.
But in the Oslo Esports Cup, we challenged all the players, and
only Liam won.
Yeah, there was only one player who beat him. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, the mystery continues. I want to know now. I want to know. But either way, yeah, Wesley was impressed by the play of that account, and clearly it's helping his game to spar against a strong player, no matter who it is. And we also have to address the fact that Magnus playing until 3 a.m. That's not something that you should try at home, kids. Don't get into that routine. Trust me, it's a hard habit to kick, but it works for him.
Starting the day at 12 o'clock in San Francisco, so not getting too many hours of sleep, Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah. Wesley, in an interview yesterday, he said he got 11 hours sleep every night. Was he joking? Was that... Who can sleep for 11 hours? I'm so jealous.
I could, but, you know, usually you don't have the time for that. Well,
life gets in the way.
Life of a chess player. All right, we have a big result, you guys. Shahryar Mamadjarov in a must-win situation has actually won Game 3 to take it to a Game 4 against Liam Le. He still has to win Game 4 to take it to tie breaks, but hopes for Mamadjarov, who started the day in Israel, playing in, what is it called, the World Team Championship?
Yep, that's right. And he started there very well. He won 2 games out of 2, including against Hans Niemann. So Mamadjarov, he's played a lot of chess today. Can he maintain the energy for Game 4 against Liam? And this one is kind of spicing up on the board. White here has started pushing that A-pawn. It's only 3 squares away from promotion. Black's rook, sooner rather than later, has to slide back behind that white A-pawn. You might even have to do it now. If it steps 1 square closer, it might have a clear run through.
I was going to say, timing is of the essence. You've got to do it now. I mean, there's no dilly-dallying here with knight takes pawn or anything like that. You've got to put your rook over to the A2 square, because otherwise, as you mentioned, David, the rook will come to C8, give a check, and then the pawn will simply walk its way over to the A8 square. And, yeah, Duda, he's a strong player for a good reason, and he understands what needs to be done. But the problem is that Magnus now is winning a whole lot of pawns.
Yeah, and Duda can win a pawn himself. For example, it's 2 pawns versus 2 right now. That should be a draw, but if Duda gives a check, the downside here is that White's king might just be able to step forward. And, for example, if the central pawn disappears, suddenly the king will go on a march, and the White king will be headed towards this pawn to start helping it advance. And who's better here? Who's got the advantage? It's really hard to say, and that's why Duda is shaking his head. He has lost control. You called it, Ivanka, a few moves ago. Rather than a calm winning advantage, or at least a pawn advantage where he can slowly kind of improve, slowly build up, he's got a position where it's a race, and he's going for this. I'm expecting Magnus to advance his king into the open, allowing a discovered check here, but just banking everything on this pawn promoting later. He could also just leave it. He could just step across 1 square, and if knight takes pawn now, he could maybe try and reactivate the white rook. But now you are contending against 2 connected past pawns. It feels like black is the only one who could win. So what will Magnus play? He does advance with his king. Yeah. Maybe black's best bet is to play it safe, Ivanka.
I was going to say.
Not to take the pawn, but to go this way.
And, I mean, I was wondering about this rook ending, and Duda does do this, so we are going to see Magnus now put his defensive skills to the test, because Duda is now going to win the B-pawn, and it will be 2 pawns versus 1. And I don't think I've ever seen this configuration before, but it doesn't look like the easiest of rook and pawn endings to hold.
Yeah, I've seen this configuration many times, including recently in an Armageddon game between or playoff game at least, between Anish Giri and Nihal Sarin at the Global Chess Championship. There, it was colours reversed, and there, black's pawns were slightly further forward. But Nihal Sarin did beat Anish Giri with 2 pawns against 1. So this should be a draw. This position, objectively, if you study endgame manuals, it will say definite draw. But black has 2 connected pawns, so there's always hope. And white's pawn is out on a limb. It doesn't stop the black G-pawn. So Magnus, can he hold?
Wow.
It's not going to be easy, despite the fact that computers will tell you this one is a draw.
And he has much more time on the clock. We have another big comeback here. In Game 3's, Arjun Erigaisi has tied the match against Prague. So that means they will be tied heading into game 4. If there is a winner in game 4, that player will win the match. If it is a draw, then they will decide the match in tie breaks. And Jan-Christoph Duda is fighting for that same comeback. What do you guys think is the most likely right now?
If you were playing anyone other than Magnus, I would say you have very good winning chances in a practical game, but Magnus is the endgame expert. Magnus has held so many tough positions like this before. What do you think, Jovanka?
I also think it's going to be a draw, and for sure Magnus will have been watching that game between Anish Giri and Nihal Sarin, so he would have mastered up, or at least brushed up on the techniques on how to draw. I wasn't watching, I'm afraid, so I don't know. So I'm going to start learning, and I've got my table base here, and it's telling me that, well, as long as white just moves the rook, it can be along the 7th, can actually be anywhere along the A line, can basically move anywhere. It's going to be a draw.
As long as you don't blunder white's e-pawn, it should be a draw. He retreats, just cutting off the black king. The black king can no longer advance, and Duda looks frustrated with himself. White also has maybe a semi-threat at some point in the near future of pushing the e-pawn forward. If white can trade off one set of pawns, it's a guaranteed draw. One pawn alone for black will not do it. So black somehow needs to surround the white pawn, capture it, but it does look impossible, and Duda shaking his head. Meanwhile, I have to say congratulations to Eric Eisi for that win. He won in 18 moves against Pragg. A miniature, as we call it, a really beautiful finish as well. It was about to end in checkmate when Pragg resigned. Also, Eric Eisi started the game with one knight c3, which I don't think I've ever seen on the tour last season, this season. But there is a chessboard course out by Lawrence Trent on that move. So Eric Eisi getting inspired, surprising his opponent on move 1, and there's a lot to be said for surprise effect at the top level.
All right, we need to take a look at that and analyze that after this game.
Yeah, we will show the finish.
Wow.
If we can. Meanwhile, yeah, Duda going through the motions here, stepping one square forward with the pawn. Do you think Jovanka is going to just try forever? Is he going to try and grind this one out for 100 moves? It's going to take a long time to make progress.
Yeah, that's my man. Yeah. He's gonna try every single avenue. Why not? Because Magnus for sure would do it against him. So why not do it when the roles are reversed?
Yeah, and notice what Magnus has done. As soon as the black king started coming down the board, trying to break free, Magnus goes behind with a check, forcing the black king to run again, backwards for shelter. Yes. And now Magnus will most likely swing back where he came from with his rook, and he's going to say to Duda, your king can't come forward, your rook alone can't do the job.
I have an interesting thing. Actually, the rook must stay on the 8th row. Wow. If the rook goes, for some reason, if it goes anywhere along the H line, it's a loss.
OK, so there was room for error there for Magnus, but he did, of course, keep his rook along the 8th rank. I think he's found the perfect defensive formation. Why break it? Why try something new? But yeah, retreating the rook passively on the H-file, I think that's just a good lesson for everyone. Don't put your rook passive. Here, white's rook is active because it's supporting its pawn. It's maybe hinting at a pawn advance. It's nearer the black king. Can give some nasty checks.
And it also just dawned on me that keeping the rook on the 8th line actually prevents the black king from mobilizing itself. So if the rook did go on the H line, then the king could just snake its way towards the center.
We can show this, actually, very instructive. So a couple of moves ago, Magnus brought his rook to the 8th rank. Now, this is the idea. The black king steps out, trying to break free, trying to kind of come around the long way. But Magnus says, no, you have to retreat, check, you have to go back. Magnus brings his rook away this way. But if he had retreated, as you say, Jovanka, suddenly the black king will get into the action. Not the way it wanted to, but maybe a more effective way. It's going to come round from the front and go after the white pawn. So you have to stop black's king activating. And that's what he did. You're completely right there. And again, any time the black king pokes its head out, the white rook will slide behind and say, no, you have to retreat. And this, unfortunately, is just a very poor piece for black. Nothing to be done about it. Even if black waits now with the rook, white can wait with his king, I guess, just shuffle across.
It's important, actually, to shuffle across, probably to the H4 square. Again, just to lock out the black king.
Yeah, stop the black king from advancing. And nothing to be done. I don't think white should ever get hasty and push his pawn forward, for example, because now black would reject that trade and the black rook will slide behind, dealing with white's pawn. And it's more important that these two have broken free and they are connected still. So that's what Duda needs to do. He needs to keep his pawns protected, protecting each other at least. And He can give all the checks he wants, but Magnus will just retreat. You could step forward here, maybe, but you don't want to get involved in any tactics. There would be ideas of, he retreats because there would be ideas, for example, of rook takes rook. This is a really nice tactic. A little check and a double attack. Any king and pawn endgame is winning for black. Black's king comes round this side to shepherd its pawn forward. Yeah. So you don't want to checkmate yourself, essentially. Magnus, of course, doesn't trap his king. He retreats. Now his king has some breathing space.
Yeah.
Still a draw.
An instructive point there, David. And it is still a draw, but it's quite interesting how Magnus will handle the position once the black king steps forward.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the only winning try for Duda. At least now the white king's been pushed back slightly. The black king can try and come around, but okay, he starts pushing pawns. The one downside to this one is that the black pawns are no longer connected, so there's some risk involved, but more reward. If black's king gets one more move, slide down to the square that was previously occupied by this pawn, maybe some chances. Should still be a draw though. Magnus waits. Now if the black king poked its head out to the 6th rank, Magnus was ready to give a check. But Duda looking pretty confident. His king is coming. Suddenly I would be worried if I were Magnus. If I'm in Duda's shoes, I feel like I've made progress.
It certainly looks that way, but Magnus does have the drawing technique, which is simply to keep his rook active, keep an eye on the f7 pawn, and everything should be okay. But like you say, David, I would be feeling nervous.
Yeah, and this is where Magnus, I mean, he's been playing so quickly, he's still got 6.5 minutes. This is where Magnus is a class above the rest. If the colours were reversed, I would bank on Magnus actually pulling through and maybe even squeezing out a win. But often the top players in the world, they can't do that against Magnus. They can't do it vice versa when they are the ones with extra pawns. He's so good at knuckling down and holding on, surviving. That's a skill in itself. That's why he's a universal player, not just when he's on the front foot, Magnus, but also when he's holding these difficult endgames. Duda, meanwhile, just trying to find a way to round up white's pawn. There we go. He goes after it, but white's rook is most likely going back where it came from to defend. Okay, it retreats along the 5th rank. Also very sensible.
Was one of the two ways to draw.
Yeah.
You have to defend your pawn. And I'm wondering now what's going to happen once the king steps up. And now it's just important that the rook stays on the 5th row. But okay, Duda goes round with the king.
Yeah, the black king is coming.
Ooh, hang on a second here. Suddenly I can see the margin for error has suddenly increased because there's only one way how to draw this. White has to step to the side with the king and attack the rook. Everything else will lose.
Wow, so maybe we have to show this. And there, Stockfish does confirm under the players' cameras, White has to shuffle his king across to f3 towards that black rook. If Magnus waits, he waits one move too long. If you step across with the rook, for example, the second best move, then black's king comes. And now there's no way to stop the king stepping forward. And most likely, this pawn is doomed. 2 pieces will surround it and win it. This is why you have to seize the moment now. I think Magnus should get there by process of elimination, but you have to seize the moment now to hit this black rook. If the black rook moves away, keeping an eye, he does find it, Magnus. If the black rook moves away, keeping an eye on this pawn, white's king can once again get active, counterattacking. And therefore, Duda had to give a check, but now Magnus, his pawn is no longer under fire. The black rook has been kicked away. And if the black king comes now, white can, for example, cut off its advance along the 6th rank. I think this is what he'll go for.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, that is the only way to draw, David.
Again, the only move. It's very logical here, however. You cannot let black's king near your pawn. And Magnus, of course, he finds it. But credit to Duda. He's narrowing the path again. If you keep giving your opponent these must-find moves, these kind of only move situations, then eventually they might crack. And Duda, his idea is to maybe start advancing this pawn now. Magnus, meanwhile, activating the white king. So no checks in this position, for example, because white's king gets really active and goes for the black pawn. What will Duda try? He just waits, he retreats his rook, and we'll most likely see Magnus wait as well. Magnus could wait with his own rook. I think the whole idea here is as soon as the pawn starts running, now we go back, or maybe we can go forward, but I would just want to retreat and come back and try to win it. Now this pawn is separated from the rest of its army.
Yeah. And basically, the key is that once the king is protecting the white pawn, then the white rook is able to move to any square.
Yeah. Now the white rook is free. You can even come back immediately. You can even step forward. Yeah. This is actually difficult for black suddenly because the king can never really step forward without getting checked away again. So maybe this is even safer for Magnus, just going already behind this black pawn. Looks like a safe way to draw. Or he could just wait, maintain the defensive formation. It looks far from being broken, this kind of cut along the 6th rank. If you just wait, black's king can never advance.
There's only one really, really bad move. Okay, so there's some obviously bad moves to blunder rooks, but there's one which kind of could happen, which is if the rook moved to d6. Now, that would be a bad move because it does allow the f-pawn to suddenly march forward, and white cannot play en passant because the rook would fall.
Yeah, so you don't want to put your rook on a vulnerable square. That's a very nice tactic there, Jovanka. So it's never too late to blunder in an endgame. But Magnus ticking down to around 4 minutes. I'm expecting him to wait somewhere along the 6th rank, a safe square along the 6th rank. And still within the drawing realms, Duda under 20 seconds. The good thing for him is he can play for another 50 moves, gain a bunch of time on the clock. But against someone like Magnus, yeah, it's unlikely to work. Certain players, certain temperaments will crack. I often play against very impatient players, very attacking players, and here is their worst nightmare to sit slowly and defend. But yeah, Magnus, I'm running out of compliments for him. He's just so good at these situations.
To be fair, though, this is anyone's nightmare.
This is true.
No one likes to play these kind of positions when you are just groveling for the draw. And Duda, he doesn't have much time on the clock, but he has plenty of moves at his disposal. And Magnus doing the right thing, you know, he's taking his time, he's working out the right plan, and he's just making sure that there's no pitfalls. And he's navigated the complications and the path to a draw superbly. I mean, it's been faultless play.
Yeah, he's defended extremely well so far, but he still has to defend for a while more. And under 3 minutes. Duda looks very focused. It looks like Duda's kind of planning, plotting an idea, a way to try and outfox the world number one. But yeah, it's not looking easy. As long as white leaves his rook on a sensible square. I don't think the king needs to move. Maybe white's king could move here as well, but why? Just the white king looks beautiful where it is in the center.
Yeah, no need. But basically, most moves draw. Unless you make a howler. Sorry, David.
It's my middle name, my nickname, Howler.
Yeah, it's not there.
David Howler Howell. But yeah, my cousin calls himself DJ Howler.
Oh, is he famous?
I think he'd like to think he is. Hi, James.
James?
Yeah, not Grandmaster James Howell. There's another Grandmaster with my surname, but a different James Howell. And OK, he gives a check.
That's
so he's, yeah.
Also fine, also
fine.
good.
But he's driving the black king maybe back where I wanted to go anyway. The black king couldn't have stepped down to the 6th rank, remember, as we would have seen a check.
Oh, I was just wondering this. Magnus has something concrete in mind, and this move forces the draw.
Wow, so very clever. So Magnus, that's why he invested a few minutes. Otherwise, he would have just waited. Otherwise, he would have just maintained his defensive setup. So he's giving up a second pawn. Again, I wouldn't advise this normally, but he's so good at calculation that he's probably worked out if black takes this white pawn now, white's king will step up one square. Here we go. And it's impossible for black's rook to defend both pawns. The problem is black's king is completely cut off on the 7th rank, hence Duda retreating to try and break the bind. But now white's rook is going for that e-pawn.
It's just accuracy central, David. I mean, Magnus, he just knows what he's doing. And Duda coming with his king, but you can, OK, only one move. And of course, Magnus finds the way to capture. You had to capture that pawn with the rook. And now it's just totally drawn. Look at the black king. It's completely cut off on the 6th row. And Duda just putting his rook on f1. Magnus moves it. Not a problem.
And usually this type of endgame is very difficult for white to hold because the white king is also cut off from moving towards the black pawn. If you look at black's rook, it's doing a great job on the f-line, keeping that white king far away. but it's more about the black king. If black's king was anywhere other than the 7th rank, if it was on h5, if it was nearer its pawn, it would be a win for black. But the black king is just too far away. Black's pawn, as soon as it starts to run, will just drop off. And I think that we'll see the players agree a draw soon. Magnus has done a great job. Cut off the opponent's king. That's the key in these rook games.
Yeah. I'm so impressed by the way he played it and the way that he just took that time out and then found the forcing continuation just to secure that draw. And it all comes about because he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Hard work. Like, know your... I was going to swear there. Don't do that, Yobi.
Know your stuff.
Yes.
And here we go. The black pawn does try to advance. There was nothing else for black to try. But here, white is just going to give a check. And the black king, if it goes to the wrong square, a check would have picked up that black pawn. Instead, Magnus is happy to retreat. He's driven the black king the whole way back. And now that black pawn is doomed. It's too far away from the rest of its army. You can defend that black pawn with your rook, but then the white king is free to move across and win it. Yeah, we'll see a draw any moment now. Duda, he tried to press, but he couldn't quite break Magnus's defenses. And, okay, the rook does at least protect its pawn, but white's king is just retreating, coming back. We'll end this game with king versus king once the black pawn drops off, and there we go. We have a result.
There it is. It is a draw. That means we will see a game 4 between Magnus and Jan Christoph. But it's going to be a must-win for Duda to take it to tie.